there's a note by Irene in her like inner dialogue. This girl wasn't like wildfire. She was wildfire. Deadly and uncontrollable and slightly out of her wits. That little thing is like sums
Such
up
a good
Celaena.
description
It's
of
so
Celaena.
good. Hey everybody, this is Kat.
And this is Rachel.
And you're listening to the Smut Peddlers podcast, a show for people who love books, especially when they're smut. We discuss our likes, our dislikes, and share all our favorite moments with you.
Today we're talking about The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. So grab your favorite beverage and get ready to burn with us. So this week is a little different. We're reading The Assassin's Blade, which is a collection of short stories that Sarah J. Maas wrote. And they're kind of prequel stories ahead of everything that happens at the start of Throne of Glass. Because we are reading it in the romantic order, we are reading it now rather than at the beginning, like in front of Throne of Glass. And that's mostly because, well, I guess I'll ask your opinion. The reason that you do it is because it's supposed to have a more like emotional impact when you read some of the pieces of the short story. Since you've already gotten some context about Celaena, you've gotten some context about Sam, and a lot of characters come back up in this. So do you think that this was more impactful reading it now than you think it would have been having read it at the start in front of Throne of Glass?
Yes. I think if I went into this, I probably wouldn't have like even cared too much about it or cared too much about kind of the background people that so this whole thing, she meets people along the way. Each short story, there's like her as a main character, and then there is someone else that's kind of involved in that story. And so I don't think I would have had the same opinion if I had about her in this book if I didn't know things beforehand, because there's things that come up that you get little snippets from in the previous books that we've read. And It's cool to like see that actual story instead of just getting like a little snippet here or there of what it is. If I read this ahead of time, I probably would have made connections like once I was started reading the books, but I probably would have been like, I like vaguely remember that. It wouldn't have been really at the forefront of my brain, I don't think.
I think that because we get like the full Sam storyline basically like through this collection of novellas, it felt a lot more emotional to read it because I knew what was going to happen and I know how much it affects her. So that was a lot. But then I felt like it was also nice because there's short stories in here that of characters that we don't know. So it still had like, it's not like I missed a ton by not like reading it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Like I didn't feel like I was like, I needed this backstory to really understand, because they explain and talk about how much that relationship built her, I don't know, foundation.
Yeah.
And is so much like a big part of her character development. And it hits the key parts like through Throne of Glass all the way up through Air of Fire that I didn't feel like I needed it. But it was so nice to have it once we got to that point of like, oh.
Yeah, it
Yay!
was. I did, like, towards the beginning, she always, like, in the other books, obviously she hints about Sam and how he was kind of, like, the love of her life, but doesn't really say much past that. You just know, kind of at some point in those, you know that he dies. And you know that it was because of a trap. So, like, going into this, I definitely had the, like, oh God, when is this going to happen feeling? Because obviously they started the like first section of the book, which is the first short story, and Sam is there, and I went, oh God, okay, I think I'm ready for this.
Yeah. So this is 5 short stories. And they kind of take place, I think it's a year to 2 years before Throne of Glass.
Yeah, I think they mentioned she turns 17. She's 16 during this. And is turning 17, and in Throne of Glass, I believe she turns 18, or it was like the second book she turns 18. Somewhere
think
around
so.
there, she turns 18. I remember seeing that.
In there somewhere.
Yeah. I also want to start by saying I gave this 5 stars. I don't think I would have given it 5 stars if I read it as a book one.
That's a good point. I don't think I would have either.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why people recommend it so much to read it after Heir of Fire, is because it does, like, it changes the way that you read the story.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it would have been interesting and impactful.
I probably would have given it a 4. Like, I probably still would have liked it. Like, I think each thing had its own little bit of action that I crave when it comes to fantasy books. I just don't think I would have given it a 5 star. Just, like, thinking about it, I think in the way that I read it, I needed this at this point.
Mm-hmm.
After Heir of Fire. Like, I really needed something that was very, that kind of, like, explains who she is as a person. Because this really, like, gets down to who she is in her core. And kind of book 1 and 2, or Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, like, those 2 books, you kind of get a feeling that she is better than she makes people think she is. But this really, like, shows that and where she was kind of tipping in that direction.
Yeah. I think I also gave it 5 stars, and I don't think I would have. I almost think that it was better the second time I read through it. Because I don't know if...
When you read it the first time, what part in the series did you read it?
I read it the same spot.
Oh, okay.
I read this at the same spot because I also read the romantic, because our friend Leah and I had read it together. The only thing we didn't do was the tandem read. So the tandem read will be new when we do it together on my reread. But I did read it in the same spot. But this is the first time I read it after I've finished the whole series. So I think that there was a lot more that I picked up on in this that I thought was interesting. And I caught stuff that I was like, oh, yeah, okay. I probably could have caught on to, like, X, Y, or Z things sooner if I was paying more attention to the book. Mm-hmm. But I also read it so differently than how you and I are reading it now. Like, I blew through these books. I was just, like, devouring them as quickly as I could because they're fantastic. This time, since we're doing it for the podcast, like, it's so much more time just, like, sitting, making notes, like, writing things, like, actually reading through every single word to be like, that's something that I can, like, that I remember from later in the book, and this is, like, the first time that it ever came up. Mm-hmm. But it's a 5 star. It's so good.
It's very good.
I also think it's a nice little, like, I don't want to say it's a palate cleanser, but it's slower than Heir of Fire. It's slower than, any of the other books. Like, stuff starts picking up and, like, really cooking with gas post Heir of Fire.
Well, yeah, Heir of Fire, she's now turning and going back.
Okay, we're going to calm down for a second. Get these novellas in. They're cute. Some of them are very fun and lighthearted. And then we'll go back to what Sarah does best, which is anxiety and depression. Thanks, Sarah.
So with that, with every other book we've done a character list. At this point, since it is 5 separate short stories, we decided that there's only 2 characters that really, or I guess 3 characters that really overlap all of the short stories. And that's Celaena, Sam, and Arobynn. And they are, like, your main 3 that you follow. So it's her relationship with Arobynn and her relationship with Sam. But it's really focused on Celaena and kind of her kind of path to where she is today. And that being, like, beginning of Throne of Glass. Yeah.
And I think that's the other part that you don't get a lot of. Those are the 2 characters that you know through reading Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, that they had a massive impact on her and who she is as a person now, but you just don't get, like, specifics.
Yeah, you don't get their relationships.
The narrator never really, like, comes up and is like, yeah, this is what it was like. that's like so vague that this collection is really like, okay, this is how she is who she is up until the point that you get to Throne of Glass.
Yeah. Well, let's get started with short story number 1. We have The Assassin and the Pirate Lord. This is pages 1 through 75. If you have a physical copy of the book, you can kind of figure out those pages too via Kindle. In the audiobook, it is broken up in sections and then chapters. So section 1 is 10 chapters for anyone listening that's trying to follow along where we're at. Kind of section 1 starts off, they're in the Assassin's Keep, and it starts off with them, Arobynn calling a meeting of all the assassins within the Assassin's Keep. And there's a note by Celaena that 5 of his assassins that he kind of trusts the most are in this room. This is where we learn that Gregory, who is one of the other assassins, one of his 7 main assassins, has been captured and is in the hands of the King of Arobynn and in their like royal dungeon. Then you also learn that Ben, who is Arobynn's like right-hand man and is someone that Celaena looks up to a lot and has kind of like been Arobynn. You get this idea that Arobynn is like bad guy, like bad cop, and Ben is good cop in their like dynamic from this like interaction. But she really holds Ben like close to her heart. And so you learn that he has been killed. And of course, Celaena, as we have learned in other books, when people die, she does not she handles it how
she
people
doesn't handle
death.
grief super well, but
no. She definitely goes into like her typical rage-filled, I want to get revenge right now kind of scenario whenever she gets kind of bad news of this caliber.
So Arobynn is the leader of the assassins. He calls himself the King of Assassins, even though there are multiple assassins guilds out there.
Yes.
And he has trained Celaena, but Ben has trained Celaena pretty much as Arobynn had.
Yeah.
And in terms of, good, if we go with good cop, bad cop, which is not a terrible not a terrible way to think about it, to be honest. Ben is the good cop, and she has basically been trained like up until this point as like his protege, as Arobynn's protege. So between the two of them, like she has been the main focus of the two of theirs training, like up until this point. And it's maybe not losing a father figure, but at least like losing like an uncle, like a person who has guided you through your whole life, or through your life, at least up until this point, and has been the nicer of the two for sure. So that it hits her really hard, and she's furious because she wasn't sent to like help with the mission or retrieve his body.
She learns in this moment too that Sam, which is her like, who's kind of like gearing to take her spot, she learns that he was sent and she wasn't.
Mm-hmm. And they chose not to bring his body back, and she's like furious.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the first interaction that we have with Sam where like they were at each other's throats for a while. Like they did not get along at all. And she always thought that he was, I don't know if it's so much like jealous as, envious of the fact that she got all of the attention, or that she was the one that he trained more, or was chosen to, like, I don't even know if it's necessarily succeed him, but that she's the one that gets all of the training.
Yeah, so it's kind of pointed out that Celaena is going to be the heir of the Assassin's Guild. She's going to be like if something happens to Arobynn, she takes leadership of the Assassin's Guild. And so the third seat is Sam then, because she's technically second seat to Arobynn. So obviously this doesn't sit well with her. She goes and retrieves, well, I guess I should say before this, Arobynn is quoted as saying that when Gregory was caught, that his mission was a trap. And that is kind of, if you know from previous books, we learned that Sam died due to a trap. So this like Gregory character, who's another assassin, also was trapped in some manner and then captured and then brought to the dungeons. You don't really know what happens to him. We assume that he is either going to die or be shipped off somewhere, or who knows what the king wants to do with him. But at this point, we just know that he is captured. And I think it's very important. I think it's very telling that Arobynn used this, like, he was trapped in that location. Or not trapped in that location, but he was going on a mission and then was kind of, a trap was set for him to be captured specifically.
I don't know if we ever learn that, like, if that's true or not.
We
like,
don't.
He mentions that it was a trap,
He
but, like, we never learn, like, how he got actually captured.
Yeah.
Or anything like that.
We just know Ben died. He says something along the lines of, like, Arobynn is upset that Ben is dead, but he also mentioned that, like, he wasn't supposed to be with Gregory that day. So we get this idea of, like, okay, there's a trap set. Maybe it was specifically targeting Gregory and not Ben, and that's why Ben is dead and Gregory is captured. Like, we don't really know anything but that, because it pretty much is like, there's the scene that they're at the Assassin's Guild. Celaena goes and retrieves Ben's body, and then they're literally shipped off to go and meet with the Pirate Lord.
Yeah. So she gets sent to go and meet with the Pirate Lord of Skulls Bay, on a mission for Arobynn to go, basically, like, deliver a letter to the Pirate Lord from Arobynn. And she has to go with Sam. He forces the two of them to go together, which is going really well. And Celaena is being
They definitely love each other so much and just are the best of friends.
They get along great. It's, like, very much reminiscent of the way that Rowan and Celaena act with each other. She just doesn't get along well with people when she first meets them. It takes her a while to, like, not be, to be honest, a bitch.
She's only known Sam since she was, like, 8 years old. It's fine.
Yeah, it's whatever. It's years, decades to warm up to people.
Yeah.
She is just being, like, very sassy, disrespectful. He makes them wait for their, like, appointment. The pirate lord, like, doesn't show up on time, so she goes and, like, sits in his chair and puts her feet up on his desk, and Sam's like, can you not do that, please? Like, somewhat respectful would be great. She's like, he's not here on time. There's no respect here.
She's like, I don't care.
Yeah, and so the Pirate Lord shows up, and they make note of, like, the map that he has on his arms. So, like, the Pirate Lord's name is Rolf. And one of the way that he became the Pirate Lord originally was he traded his soul or something. Like, he made some deal to have this map tattooed on his arms. And it's a magic map that moves. And it will, like, identify, like, ships that he wants to avoid. It'll identify treasure and lands, and, like, it's a very cool map.
Mm-hmm.
But it stopped working about 8 years ago because of magic. And so they're having this conversation when they meet of, like, well, I didn't just have to, like, I didn't get everything, like, given to me because I had some magic map. And he's like, yeah, I haven't had a magic map for, like, 8 years. I'm still out here having to, do what I got to do to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, when she gives him the note, he is like actually like kind of stunned that she didn't read it.
Yeah.
Which I actually was also stunned that she didn't read it. I would have thought she would have read it.
Yeah. Granted, she did talk about opening it, and Sam was like, "Don't you dare."
Yeah.
But granted, it was Celaena, so like, I'm surprised. Yeah, I was also surprised she didn't read it. They pretty much were sent there under this like idea that this letter was threatening the pirate, like threatening Rolf to say your pirates were responsible for the deaths of a few of assassins.
Yeah, Celaena definitely assumed that it was a threat or a demand of like payment of some kind because his pirates had been connected to the assassins that had died.
Yeah. Turns out that was not the case.
Not it.
Nope.
Unfortunately.
Arobynn's letter said that he wanted a shipment. And we learn in that moment that the shipment is of slaves. And of course, Celaena and Sam both did not know this. But they put on a ruse that they did. They push back a bit to try to get more information about it. He gives them that a shipment will be in tomorrow, and then they would be ready to go prior to them leaving, and that Rolf agrees to the terms in which Arobynn had kind of set in his letter. But they never put on this idea that they didn't know what the letter said.
Yeah.
So
they get some information about like how long he's been trading in slaves and how many slaves he has currently and like where some of them are going. But like as soon as they leave that room and they're not in hearing distance anymore, they immediately are like, why is Arobynn buying slaves? Like they don't need the money.
mm-hmm.
Like they make money perfectly fine, like the way that the Assassin's Guild is run. So Celaena like does not understand why they'd get into slaves, like the slave trade. And she is like the way that I don't know if it's in this short story specifically or if it's in a different short story, but I do think that it's kind of funny the way that she talks about it, of like, she says that they're above that kind of work.
Mm-hmm. It's when she's talking to Sam in this one. Yeah, it's when she's saying it to Sam.
I thought that was like such an interesting way to describe it, of like, one, it's bad, we shouldn't do it. And two, like, we're assassins. So like she knows that what she's doing is wrong in some way, but that like there are certain levels to how far she will go into, you know, criminality. And she's like, that's too far. There's the line. It's right there. People, trading people? No, I'm good.
Yeah.
She doesn't even like the courtesans. Like a lot of Sam's backstory is built around the fact that like Sam's mom was a courtesan. So like he's very sympathetic to all of the people that are put into that position. And Celaena is sort of, although she's not nice to people who are extra nice to Sam.
Mm-hmm.
But like slaves and the sex trade, not huge fans of hers.
No,
she's not a big fan.
Yeah, she doesn't like that people are getting kind of forced into that.
Yeah.
And she also touches on in their conversation, she doesn't say it, but she has like the internal dialogue of like, well, if Arobynn hadn't found me, I probably would have been in those same shoes. Like I probably would have been made a courtesan of some form.
Yeah. She does think a lot. She does think a lot about like that she would probably be in that situation if she'd been found by someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, her being who she is, she immediately just starts digging for information and starts plotting. Not really known to Sam, and at this point, not even really known to the reader. She just like immediately starts plotting like, cool, great. How am I gonna not this is not happening.
I don't want to be a part of this.
I'm not going to be a part of this. So she like immediately starts thinking of ways to tank the deal.
Yeah.
And she starts just like doing anything she can and like is not telling Sam anything. And Sam's like, I know you enough to know that you're doing something. I just don't know what it is. And if you could tell me what it is, then I could help you. That would be good.
Yeah. So her first like goal is just to stop the deal between Arobynn and Rolf. And so, like you said, she asks questions. She pretty much says, like, are we going to be able to see these slaves to know that we're getting good ones? Or, like, she really is trying to, like, weasel her way into different aspects of this trade deal that a typical buyer would not be a part of. So they go, well, he has a second group of slaves also that have been kind of held in another facility that aren't on a boat. And Rolf is like, fine, you don't believe me. I'll let you come look at these slaves. And you can see how we conduct our like investigation against like on them to see if they're like good enough to be sold. So they go and they go to inspect the slaves at Rolf's like secondary location. And in this time when they're there, that she realizes that these slaves are kind of from everywhere. She notices some people that look like they're from Eelway, potentially from, my brain always wants to say Melissa Land, but that is
Melisande.
Melisande. And then kind of like all other places, potentially from Terracin. Like they're just from everywhere. She realizes that it's not just men in this, it's women and children as well. And so I don't remember if it's her or Sam that asked the question of like, how many children are going to be in our batch? And he says, well, there's 10 here and there won't be more than that. And so they kind of ask the questions of like, how can you guarantee that the children are going to be wanted by other people? And like, all these other things. The Pirate Lord or Rolf, you get this idea that he kind of sort of has a heart because he doesn't necessarily like regret it, but he gets a little quiet when he responds and says, we try to keep the children with their mothers. A lot of times people will purchase them both and then bring one up as like a like maid or like a butler or something like that. So like the children will be raised in this kind of like in a household so that they would be with their parents still. They kind of go all over the place. So they do have one gentleman kind of standing out to be inspected. He is naked in front of them, which she thinks to herself of that being like very demeaning, and like she gets even more angry as she's in this location that they're gonna be a part of this slave trading.
Yeah, I mean, it's the slave trade. She was done with it on the mentioning of it, not even the seeing of it. But yeah, this is when like she gets so frustrated, she basically like leaves, and Sam like chases her down and basically is like, hey, not a fan of this either, but like if you do anything about this, they will both kill you. Like Rolf will kill you, and then Arobynn will probably kill you after because you ruined a very important deal for him. And she basically is like, yeah, I don't care. Nope, I'm not doing this, and it's not happening. So they basically, she is able to figure out that this guy that they pointed at, that was kind of set apart from the rest of the crowd, is one of the only people that speaks the common tongue. And she's like, okay, great. Now I know that at least one of them speaks my language, and he can translate to the other slaves. So if I do something about this, then I have someone that's going to be able to like talk to them. Because one of the things, like they were having a conversation in front of all of the slaves, and like she could tell that not a lot of them could understand them. So she's trying to like piece together her plan And we do have, like, she now has a person that's at least going to be able to, like, translate for her.
Yeah. After this, she then kind of brings Sam in on what she's planning, because her plan changes after she meets these slaves and looks at them. She is now saying that she wants to set them free. She can't leave them here. She can't let them be traded. Like, she wants them out and free. And so she pretty much tells Sam that, like, I just wanted to ruin the deal, but now I can't let them still be traded. Like, I want them out. Like, I want them free. And so Sam sort of agrees, but, like, doesn't really at first. He's like, I need you to, like, calm down for a second, and I need you to know that, like, if we ruin this, Arobynn will kill us. Like, that is just what it is. And he's like, you're not doing this without me.
He makes her, like, actually put a plan together too, which is great. Like, they go back and talk to the guy whose name is Dia, and they get so much information out of him about, like, we can't just sail out of here. Like, there's a big chain basically at the entrance to the bay that's held up by, like, these two towers, and even if we make it, like, if we're able to, like, take over the ship and row out, we still won't be able to actually get out because this chain that's in the way.
Yeah.
So they get a ton of information from him, and they're actually able to, like, formulate a plan and relay it to Dia so that they can, like, get everything set up. And it's basically like, we're going to cause a distraction, we're going to disable the other boats, and then you guys are going to, like,
row.
Sail out yourselves, and we're going to take care of the chain so that you guys can actually get out. And Dia's like, cool, got it.
It's like, I guess we could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is hesitant, and as he starts to tell the other slaves kind of about this plan, because he's obviously the translator, they then translate kind of down the line. And there are people that are questioning it, and then some of the larger men who understand what's going on, who, like, pretended that they didn't know what was happening, start telling the plan too, and they're like, we're gonna do this. And, like, all of the men that they would kind of sell to be workers in some manner, like physical labor workers, they all are like, we're doing this, and we're gonna take this ship, and we're gonna go. She said she's gonna make it so that we can go, and we're gonna just go and hope for the best. So, yeah, the plan is, at this point, the slaves are at high tide, gonna start rowing as dawn is starting to break. Sam and Celaena are going to remove this chain that would then break their masts so that they couldn't go. And the second they get in the strait, they're to, like, bring the sails down and just go and leave.
Yeah. So they start by causing a distraction. So yes. They, like, go over to the tavern where most of the, like, guards, other pirates that Rolf has around, like, hang out, and they're like, open bar, everybody, courtesy of the assassins, you're welcome. And they all, like, start drinking and playing card games and stuff, and are chatting, and, like, Rolf's there, and there's, like, one line where Sam had, like, drilled a hole through the bottom of his cup so that the beer that kept getting filled up just kind of flows out onto the floor, which I was just like, the whole time I was reading it, I was like, that's very silly. Like, I love these short stories so much, and they are great, but they were written when Sarah J. Maas was, like, very young, and they still feel, like, well fleshed out and not necessarily written by, like, a 16-year-old, but that one spot was like, what? So they're basically trying to get everybody drunk so that even if they did notice something, you've got, like, a bunch of drunk people trying to go and stop the people who are trying to escape.
Yeah.
I do love that they basically get to the point where they're like, okay, it's go time. It's time to, like, they basically start a brawl.
Yeah.
But when they start the brawl, it says, Sam gave Celaena a nod, and she tripped a passing pirate who spilled his drink on an already belligerent man, who in turn tried to punch him in the face, but hit the man next to him instead. By luck, at that moment, a trick card fell out of the man's sleeve, a prostitute slapped a pirate wench, and the tavern exploded into a brawl. It's just such a good paragraph. And then, like, chaos ensues. So, like, they all just basically start fighting. There is, like, a full-on brawl.
It's Sam's fighting noisy. People. Celaena's fighting people. Like, everyone is fighting. They're really trying to make it look like it's just a brawl, and they're a part of it. And they're also drunk and, like, you know.
Yeah. And they're doing their best to get out of it also as soon as possible, because they've got to go and, like, do other stuff. Because they have to go disable the towers. So they're, like, involved in the fight, and then Rolf even tries to stop it at one point, and he, like, yells enough, like, at the top of his lungs, and everyone stops for a second, and then, like, immediately starts fighting again. Yeah. And, like, for a split second, you're like, oh, no, is this not gonna work? Oh, no, never mind, they're fighting again. Everything's fine. So they try to slip away. She does get caught by Rolf, like, right when they're kind trying of, like, to leave.
Yeah, they're walking through, like, an alley, kind of joking at each other, like, oh, that went better than we thought it would. And then Rolf shows up.
So this whole time, Celaena is, like, wearing a mask. Up until this point, Celaena has been in, like, disguise, because she is still known in Rifthold as, like, Arobynn's niece. Like, that's her disguise, basically. Is she's known as his niece and not as an assassin. When she goes out as an assassin, she's always, like, got a mask on and is, like, very heavily cloaked so that people can't see her, because she, like, even, like, lowers her voice or something to make people think she's older, because, again, you know, no one's gonna be pleased that, like, this great assassin
16-year-old girl is
murdering everyone. So she and Sam both kind of get caught by Rolf, and in an effort to distract him so that Sam can still go and try to get the chain down, she, like, takes off her mask and cloak and then, like, tells Sam to run. And Rolf is just, like, stunned because, as I just said, he's a little surprised that this girl is a 16, 17-year-old girl who's this great assassin. And he's like, this is a joke. You're not really the assassin that everyone thinks that you are. There's no way that you, a 16-year-old girl, are this famed assassin. She's like, it's me. Surprise.
It's me. And look, I'm not hideous, as you assumed this whole time.
Yeah, so they get into a fight, and Rolf at first is, like, thinking that she and Sam were sent here by Arobynn to steal the slaves rather than, like, share the profit. And she's like, nope, I'm just trying to let them go because the slave trade is gross. And Rolf is like, one of the things that he brings up, he says, there are thousands of slaves out there. Are you going to march into Calcula and Endovir and free them too? And then he calls her, like, he just says, like, that she's a stupid girl and, like, a fool. And that she's, like, not going to be able to be successful at this. But she's able to, like, knock him out and then, like, run to try to help Sam and help the slaves escape. So she is able to get away from Rolf and immediately starts running to be able to help Sam. And she's realizing pretty quickly that she's not going to make it to be able to help him. She can, like, see him struggling, but she knows the distance is not something she's going to be able to cover, and she can see the ships in the water, like, getting close to the chain. So Sam sees these catapults that are up on the towers, and basically decides, since he can't get the chain down by himself, he disables one of the catapults by cutting it where its tension is, and it like implodes on itself and takes out like the whole tower. And Celaena just like watches all of this crumble and basically says like he would not be so stupid that he'd get himself killed.
Mm-hmm.
And she starts panicking that he's gotten himself killed for a plan that she came up with herself and basically like pushed him into doing. And then Rolf like creeps up behind her and like catches her again. So she like can't get to where she needs to be. It seems like Sam did make it out and was able to make it ahead to where he needed to go. Because he was in charge of like getting the chains down. But the chain is like really heavy and they don't really realize that it's not something that he can do by himself.
Yeah. He also is being followed very closely or semi-closely by a lot of other pirates that like she noticed him running up the stairs to go to the tower and he like kicks 2 of them down and really is like they're on his heel when he's trying to go and do this task. They also realize that there's catapults up there too that he's going to have to disable so that even if the chain is down, like they could access the catapults and put holes in the ship and then kill all the slaves. Granted, they probably wouldn't want to do that, but last resort, they could. So, like you said, Rolf catches up to her and threatens her. She, of course, being Celaena Sardathian, gets the upper hand again. And she pretty much tells him that you're going to let me do this. Like, you're going to let us free these slaves. You're also going to sign this letter that I wrote telling Arobynn to never do anything in slave dealing ever again and that you will never work with him for this. And he pretty much says that she's insane and that this isn't going to work. He says he's not going to sign either of them and pretty much says, like, don't you know who I am? As if he's some hotshot, because as if she cares who he is. She then pretty much says that, like, she'll sign it on his behalf because she learned his signature the first day that they met, which I thought was a nice little touch of Celaena being Celaena. She's like sat you down can sign this yourself, or I can sign it on your behalf and I can kill you. Your choice.
Because that was basically what she did when she sat down at his desk. She was like running through his papers and stuff. She's like, great. His signature. Good to know.
Easy.
I'll log that for later.
He also kind of tests her and is like, how do you know if I'm going to be true? Like, how do you know if I'm going to actually do what you say? And she responds, I have my sources. And if I hear that you're trading slaves, no matter where you go, no matter how far you run, I will hunt you down. That's twice now I've disabled you. The third time you won't be so lucky. I swear that on my name. I'm almost 17 and I can already wallop you. Imagine how good I'll be in a few years. She shook her head. I don't think you'll want to try me now and certainly not then. So Celaena gets Rolf to sign the documents and hand them back to her. She, of course, now is like, my only goal is to find Sam. So last she saw, he was in the tower and then the tower crumbled. So she doesn't know if he's alive, doesn't know if he is crumbled under some like rubble, if he's in the hands of the other pirates. Like, she knows nothing except for that. So she runs to where the tower is and where the rubble is and just starts screaming his name. And she goes to exactly where she saw him last, which is where, like, on the second level where the catapults are, she saw this, like, crumble down on top of these catapults. And she is screaming for Sam. And, of course, Sam, being Sam, is leaned up against something in the background and just says, for some reason, I don't think that's going to make the rock move, as she's trying to push rubble aside to find him. She, of course, yells at him immediately and was like, I've been looking for you and shouting your name. And he goes, I figured you could wait a few minutes, given that I saved the day and all. I just thought this little interaction is like, it sets you up for their relationship, I think, as a whole.
Like this whole time, like, you realize that this story is like the first time for Celaena that she starts to see Sam in like a different light, because she is so grateful that he helped her. And they like hug at the end because she is happy that he is still alive, and she hugs him and she says, if you ever tell anyone about me embracing you, I'll gut you.
Yeah, pretty much up to this point, they wanted each other dead, or at least so she thought. Like, she definitely wanted him dead.
Yeah.
Because he was just a nuisance to her and like was eyeing for her seat. And so this is your first real time where he could have died, and she's like, I don't want that. So
she actually gave a shit.
Yeah.
That was so great.
He would die.
Yeah. So he says, he kind of chuckles and laughs at her. And he says, come on, Sardothian, slinging an arm around her shoulders. If you're done liberating slaves and destroying pirate cities, then let's go home. And that is the end of that first short story. So, so cute. Lots of good backstory. And the thing that's great about each of these stories is that they do like flow into each other very nicely. So I was excited when they did put this together like as a collection of novellas, because they do read kind of similarly to the way that she writes her books already, with like having a part 1 and then a part 2. It felt like that.
Yeah. This ends with them freeing the slaves, obviously, and then they go home, which means they're now traveling back to Rifthold, to the Assassin's Guild.
Yeah. So the next short story is The Assassin and the Healer. And this one picks up with Celaena like a little while after the events of like what happened in Skulls Bay. And she has kind of been tasked with a new mission, and she is out preparing for that and like making her way there. And we start in like this small tavern where a young woman named Irene Towers is watching Celaena at this tavern, like from a distance, and like kind of trying to figure her out. Irene is just like a girl who's working at the tavern. We find out like throughout the story that she is a healer. So this is the healer for Assassin and the Healer. And that she is kind of stuck there because she was making her way to the Torre Chesme, which is like the big healer school, pretty much, and ran out of money and just started working like in this tavern. And that's kind of where we start with her watching Celaena from afar, like trying to figure her out.
Yeah. Celaena is sitting in the tavern, kind of in like the back corner, doesn't really order much. She gets like a beer and nurses it the whole time. And like, she realizes that she's not really eating much. She got this stew. So Irene is trying to like get a read on her and understand her, and wants to obviously ask her questions because she's like, there's this woman here. And she knows that she's a woman, but she doesn't know anything about her. And she just is curious. Like, she has been in this town for however long. I think it gets to close to a year that she has been here, much longer than she had planned on being there. And she just, she sees the same faces. So she has this kind of curiosity of like who Celaena is in general.
Yeah.
But she also works for Nolan, who owns the tavern, and he is very much just get money out of her. She clearly has money, so take her money.
Yeah, they can tell that she like has money, that she has some sort of like education or stature. So basically everyone in there, Nolan included, Nolan wants her to keep buying, but kind of everyone in the tavern is also watching her to be like, is this someone that we can take advantage from or steal from or rob later? And Celaena's just there like, I'm just gonna eat some food, okay? Like,
I'm just gonna sit here and wallow. So you learn that this is the first stop on her journey to the Red Desert. It is her punishment from Arobynn. We learned in, I think, book 1 or 2 that she spent time in the Red Desert, but we never really knew why she went there. She went on, I guess it kind of was touched on that she went to train when she was there and stayed with other assassins. But you learn now that she was going there because Arobynn sent her and pretty much said, you need to go and train with the assassins of the Red Desert and then come back to me with a letter that says they approve of you.
Like a signed letter of recommendation from the like leader of this other Assassins Guild.
Yeah. That's kind of all you know about them for now. And so she is not happy. You also learn that she doesn't know how Sam has been punished. So she's also feeling guilty because obviously it was her plan to free the slaves. So sending her off is punishment for freeing the slaves. She's also concerned about Sam and what he's going to do to him, what Arobynn is going to do to Sam in his time. So she's sitting there and just like unhappy.
You know that you assume that he beat her because she mentions like bruises, she talks about like talking like she resists the urge to touch her face where like her bruises are still healing, so that you know that like he punished her more than just sending her away. So she's like very concerned that he would have done something similar to Sam or worse because Celaena's kind of the favorite. So her getting sent away is probably more of a punishment. Not as much of a severe punishment as maybe Sam might have gotten. So she's just stressing out about what Arobynn would do to Sam.
Yeah. During this time, Celaena's also watching Irene and noticing her. She notices that she is well-read. She's a little timid. She knows how to avoid the caress of the random gentlemen that are in the tavern who are trying to get her attention. She does really good at like deflecting and getting kind of their eyes away from her. She really like tries to be a shadow almost. She just is like, I am just trying to make money. That is it. She also notices Nolan and him taking advantage of her. And she's like, why is this like innocent girl here that someone close to her age is here, and for what reason? Like, Celaena's also kind of intrigued by her and who she is.
Yeah. Celaena is, she's got one more night before the ship that she's supposed to go on is supposed to leave. So she basically goes out and like is ready to look for trouble. And Irene like notices the mood in the bar change like as soon as Celaena gets ready to leave. And this is when we like learn more of the backstory about Irene, that she is a healer and that she comes from like a long line of healers. And like even more to what Kat was saying, like there are people in this tavern that are like, you know, treating the waitresses like shit.
Yep.
So surprised. Happens back then, it still happens now. So cool. So like people try to get too handsy with her and like she's able to get away, but like Celaena like sees it and makes note of it. She does one of the comments at the beginning of her like perspective though is when she goes to get up, It says, Celaena was a little insulted when none of the men in the taproom made a grab for her money, her ruby brooch, or her weapons as she stalked between tables.
Like, even they're scared of me.
She's like, come on, I'm looking for a fight, and none of you guys are even making an attempt. Like,
yeah.
jeez.
At this point, she also, like, she's wallowing, but she's also, when she wallows, she tends to, like, harbor on her anger that seems to be a very big part of her, as we learned in Heir of Fire, that, like, things happen and she really holds on to her anger, and that's a big reason why she couldn't control her magic in Heir of Fire. Yeah. And at this point, she still has no control over her anger. So she immediately gets angry and she's like, I want to fight anyone. Like, just someone cross me so that I can, like, let out some of this. So in that moment, she's also like, God, I kind of want someone to try to rob me because I really just want to beat someone's ass. Like, she's like, I'm bored. I want to do something. She goes back to her room, and then she, of course, is getting antsy. She, like, blocks the door because she, like, doesn't want someone to come in when she's trying to sleep. So she, like, puts something in front of the door, and then she's like, fuck it. I don't want to sit here. So she leaves. She's, like, wandering around and tries to find a brawl. And in the same kind of time, Irene is, like, the bar has closed. The tavern has closed. Irene is doing her, like, cleanup duties of her shift. And there was a note of a couple mercenaries that were there who tried to grab Irene when she was in the bar, and she kind of, like, deflected them. They show up again, and they want to take advantage of her in this, like, dimly lit alley where she's throwing away her garbage.
Yeah, she's, like, cleaning up for the night, and they basically, like, corner her. And Celaena, like, comes down and is, like, kind of lurking in the shadows, but they sense that she's there. And one of
she starts picking them off, like, one at a time, because it's like they're shrouded in, like, mist, and so, like,
they're,
one
like,
drops, and they're like, the fuck
they
just
get
happened?
Like, pulled away into the mist, and they're like, what's going on? I think she takes out like 2 of them.
Yeah. Well, 3,
and then, like,
I think technically.
Is it 3 that she takes out before the, like, last guy starts yelling at her?
Maybe.
Yeah, so she takes out, like, she takes out, like, 3 of them, and then the ringleader is like, come out, you coward, face us like a proper man. Celaena retorts back, just like how you proper men surround a defenseless girl in an alley. God damn it. And she, like, basically kills all of them before, like, the one guy that has Irene is able to do anything at all. And the mercenary is like, you killed all of my men! She's like, yeah. Would you like to die?
Let's just say your men got what was coming for them. He then books it. Like, he's like, well, she took out the 4 people I was with, so I'm gonna leave.
He did make a smart decision.
He fucking bolts. In the whole altercation, Celaena gets, like, a slit on her arm, a cut of some form, and Irene tries to, like, say thank you by saying, let me bind that up for you. Like, let me clean up your wound.
She offers to heal her.
Yeah. And Celaena is like, no, I can do it myself. Like, clearly, I can handle myself. She, like, puts up the defenses immediately. And Irene, like, doubles down and pretty much says, I have meds. I can deal with it. Who knows what's on that blade? And she like, uses the Goddess of Healing's, like, name, which, like, makes Celaena pause. Yeah. And then, like, Irene does go on to explain that, like, she wasn't just offering to, like, bind it for her. She's like, no, my mom was, like, a healer. Like, she taught me stuff and could help you. Yeah. And she also apologizes to Celaena, and Celaena's like, the fuck are you apologizing for? Yeah,
for
she
what?
starts, like, doing
for being
stuff
a woman, for
and, like,
being outside,
stuff on it. Yeah, Yeah. Those men had it coming, but you should have been smarter on a night like this when I'd bet all my money that you could taste the aggression in that filthy damn tap room.
Yeah.
Which is true. She did note that there was a shift in the air.
Yeah. So Irene, like, basically takes her back to help her and heal her. And they talk, and you get, like, Celaena's asking her about, like, why she's here and why is there, like, a healer in some shitty tap room in, like, the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And she says, like, Irene says that she was on her way to Antica to join the Healers Academy, but she ran out of money. She started working there to make enough money to get passage to go to Antica, but, like, she's never been able to get enough money, and she said, I guess staying here became easier, simpler. And Celaena's like,
you get this idea
bullshit.
You get this idea that she had all these intentions of going and then is using money as an excuse. Like, she had enough to get the ship, so then she starts saying, well, I got passage, but then I figured I would need more money once I'm there to live and to have a place, because I probably won't be able to find work right away. So then she started needing more money, and then, of course, Nolan started taking more cuts of her money that she was making because of X, Y, and Z. She dropped something, spilled a bucket of water, I don't know, used a towel to clean something, and he was like, that's coming out of your check because you cleaned up after someone. Yeah, she even, in her, like, inner dialogue, mentions that the things that she used to heal up Celaena, she's probably going to have to pay for as well. Yeah. So it's just this constant, like, she wanted to do it, got the money, and then kind of got scared and is using the money as an excuse now to stay. And then, of course, Nolan is realizing, and so he lets her have less and less money and makes her pay rent on this, like, under the stairs closet that she sleeps in, and raises her rent even though her room is literally a broom closet. Very Harry Potter.
Super, super common to what's happening right now.
Yeah.
In real life. Oh, rent is so high, it's gross. So we also learned that Irene's from Fenharrow, which is another place that the King of Otterlyn has taken over and killed, like, the entire royal family, which is how Irene's mom died, basically, in that takeover. Like, Irene's mom was not part of the royal family, but she was
like a healer for them.
She, like,
or
worked,
something.
Yeah, she worked for their court, basically, like, as a healer. And Celaena asks her, like, what if you get to the Torre Chesme, like, what would you do afterwards? And Irene is like, that I would go back to Fenharrow because they're gonna need healers. Like, the world needs more healers, and I would go back. And Celaena is, like, surprised that she would return. And she says, like, you would come back. And Irene, she says, it's the right thing to do, was all Irene could think of to say.
There is a note, too, when they're talking, which I really enjoyed, where when they're talking about this, Celaena is like, why don't you just steal the money and go? Like, why don't you do this? And Irene is like, well, I'm not a thief. And she pretty much says, if you want something, then go take it. And there's a note by Irene in her, like, inner dialogue. This girl wasn't like Wildfire. She was Wildfire. Deadly and uncontrollable and slightly out of her wits. That little thing is, like, sums up
such a good
Celaena.
Description
it's
of
so
Celaena.
Good. I was like, this girl has met her for all of 2 days, has had a conversation with her for all of, 20 minutes? And she knows. Okay, this girl is somebody. And she's somebody very strong and a little out of her mind.
It's also so cute because, like, Irene is so good that, like, to me, and like, she's such a polar opposite of Celaena of like, no, I don't want to be here. I just steal the money and leave. And Irene's like, I could do that, but then like, I'm not that much better than any of the other people that just do whatever they want for themselves.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why I think it's like Celaena can't really understand why she would come back even as a healer. Be like, okay, well, if you get out, like, you're out. Why would you come back to this shit situation? She's like, it's the right thing to do.
To protect
and I think
my people.
Right. And it's just, I think it's the thing that Celaena has finally gotten to at this point. Like, at the end of Heir of Fire, she's very much like, yes, I am on this path of, I am going to do what's right and what's best for my people. But like, her
all
whole,
this lead up.
Still, this is, yeah, it's like all of the lead up of like the beginning of where she starts to have that character growth.
Mm-hmm.
Is like this, like one of these moments, the slaves, and then talking with Yrene, and then like all the way up through Heir of Fires. Like, she's like, oh no, wait, everyone's right. I need to go and make the right decision.
Yeah. You notice it. So in obviously the first short story, she frees slaves because she doesn't agree with it. She's starting to like actually counter a lot of the things too, where she wasn't doing that before. There's a comment that she makes in the first section where she says something along the lines of like, we don't question Arobynn. We just do as he says. And Sam's like,
yeah.
Are you sure? Should we be doing that though? Like, maybe there are questions you should be asking. And I think that is such a good tell, like, going into this, she starts to like question things and like,
yeah,
there's this person who is being dealt shit and she's still like good. And it really, yeah, I think it's such a good little.
She also trains her to like defend herself, which is so cute. Like, basically the rest of this short story is her training Yrene to like defend herself. To just leave her with something. And they kind of become like friends enough for, you know, Celaena to feel better about having to go on like literally the next day and leave.
Yeah.
Which is so sweet.
Yeah. She pretty much is like, well, if you're gonna stay here and do this, I might as well teach you how to like not get caught up in this situation again. So yeah, she teaches her little things of like, if you're grabbed, do this. If you're typically it's gonna be a man that's coming and grabbing you. So
yeah,
you know, knee him in the balls pretty much. Like, punch him in the nose. Like, there are weak points on everybody, and these are some of them. Then while they're training, or she's kind of teaching her how to defend herself, the mercenary that ran away shows up with more friends and grabs Yrene again, and puts a knife to her throat and pretty much says like, if you move, I'll like slit your throat, which seems to be a common theme. Like, everyone puts a knife to their throat and says, I'm going to spill your guts everywhere.
Yep.
Pretty much. And Celaena kind of lets him do it.
Yep. She wants to see if Irene's able to like actually take what she taught her. Granted, she's had less than 24 hours to internalize the information.
She's had like 12 minutes to internalize the information she was just shown moments ago.
She's like, you got this. And Irene's wasn't particularly happy about it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, she is able to like use what she learned to get out of it, and then Celaena helps with the rest of them.
Yeah. Celaena takes out everyone else, and she like kind of hits this one guy.
Yeah, and they like argue back and forth, like, because she's pissed that she didn't help. And Celaena goes, look at it this way, Yrene Towers. Now you know you can do it. That man was twice your weight and had almost a foot on you, and you downed him within a few heartbeats. She said, you said those men were a joke, a fiendish grin. To me they are. Irene's blood chilled. I've had enough of today. I think I need to go to bed.
I'm done. I'm good.
I'm gonna go. Word of advice, wash the blood out of your clothes and don't tell anyone what you saw tonight.
This whole short story was so cute.
It's so good.
She pretty much, she goes to bed, and when she shows up in her room, she showers, of course, because, you know, she had dirt and grime on her. Mm-hmm. She shows up to her room, and there is a satchel that has gold in it, and the brooch that Celaena had on her.
Yeah.
And there's a note that says, "For wherever you need to go, and then some, the world needs more healers." So she could take this, and she thinks, like, I could take this and save it, and I can keep living my life here. She goes, or I can go and be a healer. And she pretty much takes that money and she leaves. Like, Irene has decided. She goes, I'm going to do it. And
Yay!
She walks out of the, what is it, the wet pig or whatever the place is
White
called?
Pig.
The white pig.
The wet pig?
I don't know. Some pig.
It's not a wet pig, please. Gross.
Yeah. An hour later, no one stopped Irene as she walked out of the white pig and never looked back. Just like, yes.
So cute.
Celaena then, of course, boards her ship and leaves this town and heads to the Red Desert. And that is the end of The Assassin and the Healer.
Heck yeah. Can you guess what we have next?
The Assassin
in the Desert! Yay! We are cooking. This one was the longest one.
Yeah, the longest section.
There so much happened in this one, and
holy.
Some of it I flip back and forth about whether I actually enjoyed this story specifically, because it just felt like maybe more, it was longer than it needed to be.
I think so. I think there was, granted, I don't know how all of these new characters will then play in the story as in the long run. So, like, there is a potential. Obviously, we don't know. You know, but I don't know.
Yeah. I know everything.
Anyone from the Red Desert. So the Red Desert section is the longest. Yeah. There's no knowledge of any of these characters kind of like coming back in the books later on. So my thought is each of these people are important. So the Pirate Lord, we get a taste of him at the beginning of Heir of Fire.
Yeah.
Because he's seen leaving. You kind of hear about him leaving and like giving word that these like things these ships cross by and we're heading to Wendland. So you get kind of the Pirate Lord there.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that Irene is going to come up again as a healer and maybe a friend of Celaena later on, or someone that knows her from Fenharrow when she comes back as Elaine. Aelin, I mean. I don't know why I called her Elaine.
Because Elaine's a different character.
Yeah. I was picturing A.E.
Because Elaine's that girl from...
Aelin.
God, it's not Fenharrow. The other Terracin girl.
True.
Yeah. So... This basically starts off with like Celaena dying, trying to get through the desert because she's trying to trek through a desert.
Yeah,
and her guide is like, yeah. She spends 2 weeks trying to get through the desert. She's like very upset with her guide. She's like, I paid you to take me here. He's like, yep, just 2 more miles down the road.
2 miles that way.
2 miles that way.
Here. Because I don't want to go to the Assassin Fortress. Thank you very much. And he just says 2 miles and points like 2 miles over there. And she's like, no, you're coming with me. And he goes, 2 miles, 2 miles. And he just repeats, it's 2 miles that way. So goodbye. And then he turns around and he's like, see you later.
I'm
Have fun. I've brought you as far as I'm willing to bring you.
Yeah. So the thing that I liked the most about this short story is the assassins are the mute assassins. So they don't really talk much, and the master is like pretty much completely like mute. Like they choose not to talk.
Yeah.
She's there to train with him specifically, but he kind of doesn't train with people until he wants to. So they just kind of all of these people that are around, they're all there to train with him. And they all just kind of
wait for him to call
hang
on
out
them.
and wait until they're called on. So in the meantime, like he'll still give them tasks to do and missions to go on, but not necessarily like private training or, you know, any sort of training with them. And we meet a lot of people that are there to train with them. We meet Ansel, who is kind of the person that shows her around at first and becomes
her roommate.
Yeah, her roommate as well. And like they kind of become friends and hang out together. She's very peppy.
Very talkative.
She's very peppy.
Like
she's very chatty. And there's like a different vibe to all of the healers. Like all of the like mute assassins. They aren't all mute. Some of them talk. Obviously Ansel talks a lot. But they're like friendly with each other. They're not like combative like Arobynn has trained his assassins to be. Like Arobynn pits them against each other constantly. And that's like not how these assassins are trained. Like
no, they're trained to work together.
Yeah, and which is like very strange
part of
to Celaena.
Yeah. You get this kind of feeling of like monkhood amongst them. So like there are some of them that have taken this vow of silence. And then there's others that respect the silence, and there are certain areas where you don't speak, and those are considered like sacred spaces that you kind of get as Celaena is like moving throughout this fortress. And then there's others that they just like talk quietly and they have their reasons for being there. Some of them are just trying to find a home. Some are trying to like be trained well enough to then be hired by these mercenaries that come in and hire some of the assassins when they show up. But their main focus that Celaena realizes like isn't death necessarily. It's just like protecting their own. And so that's very different than what she's used to. Like Rachel said, it's Arobynn taught them to like fight against each other to be the best and then kill anyone in their way. And this is very much not that.
Yeah, it is cool to see like a very different Assassin's Guild, both for her and for us.
Yeah.
But I think it's like an eye-opening moment for her of like, oh, this isn't just like the way that assassins are trained. This is Arobynn very specifically choosing to train and manipulate his proteges exactly the way that he wants to. We do learn one of the other people is Mikhail. He is just kind of like another person that has come to train, and I think that like the conversation that he and Celaena have about when he decides to leave is so interesting. Like, again, this whole section is just her learning like, oh no, Arobynn just treats everyone like shit because he wants to, not because it's part of their training. They have a conversation about like why he chooses to be here, and Mikhail's basically like, I'm here because I want to be, and like when I decide that I want to leave and go home, I'll just tell the master that like I'm ready to leave, and then he'll help me make that happen. Celena's like, what are you talking about? Like, huh? No,
Yeah.
that's not how this works.
It's like, that's strange.
Yeah. Like, I'm indebted to mine.
Hmm.
I have a debt I have to pay off. And they're like, no, not a thing here.
Yeah, you in this time also learn Ansel's background, and
Yeah.
she talks about living in the flatlands, which we know as kind of where the witch kingdom used to be. So you get this
Yeah.
idea that she is from this like witch kingdom potentially, or adjacent to it. She kind of is in that same, that's kind of where she was.
Yeah.
Where she grew up prior to magic falling.
Yeah, she basically was there during the time that, like, the witches left after the land was cursed, and then her people stayed and have basically been, like, living in that cursed land since the witches left.
Yeah.
Which is, like, very cool, because we kind of just started to learn information about the witches, and, like, we know that in Heir of Fire, one of the things that the witches are, their plan is to, like, fight the King's War and then return to their land to, like, take it back.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll definitely be an interesting
Yeah,
thing
you learn that it
to
like
get more information about.
the Krakens were there first, and then these other witches came in. So you get kind of a little bit more backstory of that, like you said, of they came in, and then you also now know about Heir of Fire and how the Volg witches, which are like your blue bloods, black beaks, and yellow legs.
Yeah, and the yellow legs are the ones that are the most like the Volg still.
Yeah. But those are like the three witches that kind of are derived from the Volg. And then you have the Krakens, which is our fourth set. And the Krakens were there originally. And then these other Volg witches came in to try to take the land, and they cursed it when they were there. You also learn that once the Volg witches left, the land went back to normal because the curse is on the witches and not on the land itself. But yeah, we don't know that. Like, we as the reader know that, but the Volg witches don't know that.
Yeah.
So they just assume this land is going to be cursed forever until they kill the last Kraken or whatever their goal is with the Kraken witches, which we don't know yet. But you learn she's from there, and that her father is the Lord of Briarcliff. And so she was being trained by him, and then he told her to make herself useful and sent her to the Mute Assassins, is the background story that she gives to Celaena. We later learn that that isn't entirely true, and that Briarcliff isn't a place to be the Lord of. She just claims this title. You then meet Elias, or Ilias, not sure how you pronounce it, but he is the son of the Mute Master. So the head of the Mute Assassins is referred to as the Mute Master. And we meet his son, who also has taken a vow of silence and seems to have an eye for Celaena. Part of her punishment is that she needed to be her true self while at this guild. So everyone there knows that she is Celaena Sardathian, and she is Otterlin's assassin. And she's the protege of Arobynn.
Mm-hmm.
So
no disguises this time.
Yeah, she's not allowed to pretend to be someone else. When I first read that, I was like, oh shit, he's gonna make her tell everyone that who she actually is. But then I remembered, oh yeah, this is way before that.
Yeah.
So
also, technically, if you had read these in order, you would not know that she's...
Yes. Then I was like, wait a minute. This is supposed to be like way before.
Yeah. Prequels.
Yeah. Anyway. So, Ilias has kind of an eye for Celaena, maybe a little crush. He is always glancing at her, trying to get a read on her, I think. She takes it as like he's protective of his father and doesn't trust her, doesn't know her, which she deems as that's fair because I know who I am and now they know who I am. So I wouldn't trust me either around my father. So she isn't sure. She doesn't really know the read on him fully as to whether he has a thing for her or if he's just kind of like loitering because
protecting her,
yeah,
his dad. Yeah,
he might think that she has ill intentions.
Yeah.
So she goes in front of the Mute Master at the very beginning, kind of before she is sent to her rooms and is told that she's going to be living with Ansel. And she's like, I am to train with you, and you are to give me a letter and to recommend me for Arobynn. And the Mute Master is just like, mm-hmm.
Cool.
And says nothing.
Like,
and just kind
I
of
have
like,
a month. And he's like, uh-huh.
He's just
Great.
like, cool, great. Says nothing, just nods his head, makes some movements. And then pretty much someone says like, oh, he deems you like good enough to stay here. And then Ansel kind of steps back because she like brings her to him, and he like snaps his fingers or does something, and 4 of the assassins go and attack her like in the midst of his little room. And she's like, oh, okay, this is how this is going, got it, cool. And she disables all 4 of them. And then the Mute Master is like, yes, you're worthy of being here, and is just like, go ahead, you can go to your room now. And she's like, okay, cool.
Like, just
I think
tests her to make sure that she can even just stay and start training, even with the general like populations there.
Yeah. So she's like, okay, this was my test. He's now going to train me. The next day arrives, and Ansel wakes her up and is like, all right, we're going to go train. She's like, oh, we're going to go meet with the Mute Master? And she's like, no, he didn't ask for you. Like, he hasn't asked any of us to go. No, we're going to go hike. We're going to go take a quick little jaunt, 3-mile jaunt through the desert to this oasis to collect water with 2 buckets. And then we're going to collect that water and bring it back 3 more miles.
Did you have fire flashbacks?
No. I did not. No.
I thought about it while I was reading it, and I was like, I wonder if she's
miserable.
thinking about having to do her fire test.
Pack test is a nightmare for anyone that decides they want to take it. 45 pounds, 3 miles, 45 minutes. You have to do. That is your pack test.
Like straight uphill. It's gross.
Yeah. It's great.
Good for you.
It depends where you are. When I was in Wyoming, that test kind of like went all over the place. In Oregon, it was around a track. So like there was just, but it was 100 degrees the day I took it. So that was fantastic.
So they
so
see
being on a track,
desert.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
It was technically the desert. Central Oregon is a desert.
Yeah.
Anywho. So they do this test. And of course, Celaena is immediately woken up to the fact that she's not trained nearly as good as she thought she was when she
came
here.
She's not in as good enough shape.
Yeah, she's humbled a little bit.
She's trained well. But...
Yeah. Because she, after a mile, is now walking when everyone has started running. And she walks the 3 miles to this place, collects the water, has to stay there and wait for the hottest point of the sun to go away, and then hikes back with her 2 buckets of water. And she makes it back, but she's disappointed in herself, the fact that it took
longer
her
than
the entire
else.
Day. Everyone had been back and showered and eaten and all this stuff, and she's just like exhausted. And she's also in this place of, I didn't come here to do this. I came here to train with the Mute Master, which, you know, she still doesn't, she thinks that she's like entitled to that, which I think is a big part of her time being here. She still feels like very entitled to people's time and entitled to her, like the fact that she's Otterlin's assassin and she's number 1, she's the best, and it doesn't bode well in this scenario because they're not trying to be the best, they're just trying to be like team players. So
while she's there, she has flashbacks of what happened. Like, we get more information about, like, exactly what happened when they got back, when her and Sam got back from Skulls Bay. And the, like, flashback that we get is that, like, her beating was severe, and that she and Sam were both taken in together, and Celaena, like, very briefly realizes, like, oh, he's going to beat Sam in front of me and is going to make me watch. And instead what happens is that she gets beaten while Sam has to watch, and she can, like, hear him yelling in the background but, like, can't make out what he's saying. And Arobynn says to her, like, wow, like, right before, like, he starts beating her, basically, you're not going to enjoy this, you will not forget this, and I don't want you to. And that's, like, right when she thinks that he's going to hurt Sam in front of her, and she ends up getting hurt instead, and Sam is, like, watching. And the last thing she remembered was a pang of guilt at the sight of her blood staining Arobynn's exquisite carpet, and then darkness, blissful darkness, full of relief that she hadn't seen him hurt Sam. And, like, the next day, while they're all kind of, like, eating together, one of them asks her, like, why, like, what did she do that was so... Did she deserve what the punishment that she got from her master for whatever she did? And
yeah, because they see all the bruises on her face. Like, they haven't gone away.
Like, they can tell that she's been beaten because she doesn't cover them up. She doesn't care.
No, she has to be... Well, here she has to be her true self. So
yeah,
she doesn't wear her mask. She doesn't...
Irene had even asked her if she wanted her to heal them for her. And Celaena said no, that they were a reminder. So she, like, she keeps them on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they ask her if she deserved it, she says, if you ask, it depends on who you're asking. If you ask Arobynn, he would say that I do deserve it. But if you ask the 200 slaves that I saved, they would say I didn't deserve it. And everyone just was like, oh, shit. One of them literally says, holy gods. Like, okay. Yeah, and then Celaena just kept eating and didn't talk to them for the rest of the time they were having food.
Yeah, this is where you get this idea that they enjoy being here, and that's very opposite of what, like, during this meal, you also... She doesn't necessarily... Well, she asks some questions of, like, why are you guys here? Like, what's the purpose? Like, why are you here? Because obviously they're asking questions. So she's like, well, I need the upper hand. I need to know more about them. So this is where you learn that, like, they are choosing to be here. And, like, this is where Mikhail says, like, no, I want to be here. I like it here. I enjoy it here. Where she's like, if I could get out of the Assassin's Guild, I would.
I would be out already.
It is miserable. Like, what do you mean you enjoy it here? So the next day, she goes on her run again, because this is something they do every day, and she improves a little. Every day she improves a little. Obviously, she is realizing that, like, she's not at the top shape that she could be. She clearly couldn't hold her own in the desert until right now, where she's learning to hold her own in the desert. So she's like, maybe it is worth it for me to be here. Like, maybe it is. Maybe this isn't a punishment, but maybe it's, you know, part of what I need to get better and to be the best. She also then kind of is frustrated still that she hasn't trained with the Mute Master. So Celaena is talking with Ansel and complaining about how she has not been trained by the Master yet. And she is like, when is this going to happen? I only have so much time. I'm only here for a month. Or at this point, it's like 3 weeks now. And Ansel is like, you will be trained when he deems you ready to be trained. And so she's like, have you been trained? Or Ansel, I think, mentions that, like, even I haven't trained with the Mute Master. And she's like, and you've been here for years. So, like, how is that possible? That's not okay. how am I supposed to get him to write me this letter if, like, even Ansel hasn't been trained by him?
Yeah, and
she's
she only
like,
has a
oh, well,
month.
I do. Yeah, she only has a month. And Ansel pretty much was like, well, I do special, like, things for him, and I go and talk to Lord Barrick of Exandria. And that's, like, we're introduced to this new town that's, like, kind of adjacent to... How long does it take them to get there? Like 2 days to get to Exandria.
It's within their, like, territory.
Yeah. So it's close enough. You also learn that Lord Barrick, their only true like villain in their story, or in the Mute Assassin story, is that Lord Barrick's men get sent to attack them. Not like super regularly, but on occasion. And so they're always kind of protecting themselves from this. That being said, while she's there, I think, after about a week of being there, maybe a week and a half?
It's the 5th night.
Oh, there you go. The 5th night, Lord Barrick sends his men to attack.
Yeah, so Lord Barrick sends his men to attack the Assassin's Keep. I don't know, the Mute Master's Keep. And they don't want to start a war. Like, they specifically... Ansel specifically tells them, like, we're not actually trying to start, like, an all-out battle with them. We just want them to, like, push back and basically, like, retreat. So...
Yeah, they don't want to kill people. Like, that's another point, is, like, they don't want to kill people. They just want to be left alone.
Celaena's like, all right, we're ready to go. Like, let's go. It's time to go. And they're like, Celaena's like, what do you mean we're not going to kill them? Like, we're going to let them live? They're like, yeah, we just, we're going to shoot some arrows and make, like, a big wall of fire so they can't actually get over here. Just scare them, make them go away. She's like, why? It's like, well, we don't want to, like, go to war if we don't have to. Yeah. They're trying to come over here and encroach on our shit, and we just want them to leave. And so they basically, like, shoot these arrows and, like, set this whole hill on fire.
Yeah,
Ansel just goes, well, that was fun. Okay, Ansel. She's like, yeah, this is like one of the first points where you don't just get that she's, like, chatty or whatever, but she is also, like, a little unhinged, which is great.
Oh yeah. So pretty much, like, on the sand they had, like, a rope or whatever that was, like, doused in oil.
Yeah, like oil.
Something that, so then they shoot these arrows to a certain point, and then the whole rope, like, goes up in flame and, like, creates a wall of fire around them, so they're protected.
And it stretches around the whole fortress. Like, it's very clever.
Yeah. Well, Ansel breathed. Wasn't that fun? Celaena grinned, her heart racing. Yes. Pivoting, she spied Lord Barrick's men fleeing back across the dunes. Yes, it was. So she kind of does have fun. She's like, so I can do this and enjoy myself and not kill people? That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And then, like, literally immediately after that, they, like, go back to their room, and someone comes and knocks on the door and is like, here are your orders to go to Xandria. And, like, Ansel basically gets ordered to go to Xandria to, I guess, talk with Barrick.
There's also the time you learn that Mikhail is, like, a love interest of Ansel. Or at least they have some form of relationship outside of just two assassins. They, like, hold each other's hands and, like, do cutesy things.
Yeah. So they get sent, she's gonna get sent to go to Exandria, and she basically, like, invites Celaena to go with her. And Celaena's like, I don't have anything better to do because the master's not training me yet, so sure, I'll go. And she basically thinks, like, I'll go on this mission or whatever, and if, I do well, maybe that'll be what, like, makes the master be like, okay, great. She's, like, becoming part of the team, going with, other people to, like, work together. So this is what it is that she needs to go and do. So, like, they start making their way to Exandria. And kind of along the way is when you get more about Ansel's backstory of, she talks about where she's from and her family. She talks about her her sister and their friend, and like this she tells her this story about like the witches that were still around when she was growing up, and that like the witches had taken her sister's friend, and that like all that they could find was like a bones, like there was no body, but just like picked clean bones. Like very creepy story.
This is a tie back to Crown of Midnight when Celaena talks about how the only way to kill one of the witches is by beheading it. She gets that information from her friend, who happens to be Ansel.
Yeah.
And it's in this time where they're
this
traveling.
Is where she gets this info.
Yeah.
Because Ansel's really the only one that she knows that has any knowledge of the witches or has interacted with them in any way. So that's kind of like a tie. I guess for us it's a tie back, but it's a tie in for Crown of Midnight because we're reading it now.
Yeah.
So yeah, they make their way to Exandria, and Ansel starts becoming like, I don't know, shady. She like doesn't let Celaena go with her to the meeting, and is very much, Celena's like, all right, cool, what do you have to go do? And Ansel's like, don't worry about it, I gotta go for a couple of hours, go do stuff, go away.
He's like,
Celena's like, all right,
what
fine.
do you mean?
Jesus.
I came all this way to just mill about for 3 hours?
Yeah. So what does Celaena do? She's gonna go shopping because she likes pretty things still. They mention it in like every single story, how she like still, they talk about it all the time. Like, Sarah does not let it die as a character trait of Celaena, that Celaena likes shiny things, and I love it. So she goes on like a 2-hour shopping spree, and like goes and looks at some pretty shoes, goes and looks at some jewelry, and she happens upon this guy who, like, she was looking at some shoes, and then like his table caught her eye, and she walks up to it, and there's spider silk on this guy's table, and the guy is like, you're the first person that's actually noticed what it is, like this for what it is, which is Stygian spider silk. And she has a conversation with this guy who's selling it, and she's like, where did you get it? Like, why are you here selling it and not in like Rifthold or somewhere else that's got like more money to sell it? And the guy basically said that like he found the spiders and asked them for the spider silk in exchange for 20 years of his life. And he thought this was so clever. He's like, I thought they would take it off the end of my life. Nope, I'm 25 and I look 45.
Yep.
She's like, oh shit. And they like talk about like how did like you go and see if you could figure out like what was wrong. And he's like, yep, I found like a witch to talk to. And they were like, the only way that you could reverse it is by killing the spider that cursed you in the first place.
That pretty much you gave those years to.
Right. And he makes a comment about how the assassins will make deals with Barrick. And so she's like internalizes that information, and basically he's just like, so like, can I make a deal with you to kill the spider for me? And she's like, I got shit I gotta do. Like, I'm only here for a little bit. I've got stuff I gotta do when I go home. I don't really know about that. And he's like, don't worry, like, I'm not gonna come back to the continent for like another year. And she's like, okay, maybe. Like, if you end up back in Rifthold, like, go find Arobynn Hamel and tell him he'll know where to find me. And he's like, well, wait, like, what's your name? She goes, no, he'll know where to find me. And he gives her a small patch of the spider silk as like a reminder that he says that it's nothing in this world is like free, and that like things don't come without strings. But I think that it's just like, if I give her some of the stuff, maybe she will actually go kill the spider leader.
Yeah, he pretty much says, here, a reminder A reminder of what? She shut the lid and tucked the small box into the inner pocket of her white tunic. The merchant smiled sadly, that everything has a price. A phantom pain flashed through her face. I know, she said, and left.
So now she has this, like, little thing of spider silk. And she, like, basically takes it and goes back and, like, returns to whatever, like, the meeting place was with Ansel.
Mm-hmm.
And Ansel's like, look, do you want to go look at some horses? Totally chill.
Celaena
First she asked about the meeting. She asked about the meeting, and Ansel is once again kind of a bitch and is like, it's none of your business.
Yeah. It's like such a character shift that you're like,
she's so chatty.
Okay. Like, she's so welcoming and kind and chatty and like has this one persona. And then in this one moment, she's just like, that's none of your business, Ansel said a bit sharply. Then she added, just follow me. Like, she's frustrated that she even asked. And so Celaena goes like, oh, I guess the meeting didn't go as well as she had hoped. So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut, I guess.
We'll just gloss over that one.
Yeah. Yeah, Celaena follows her and takes her to these stables. And at these stables, there are 2 Asterion horses.
Yeah, Asterion mares. They're like gorgeous horses. We talked about them in one of the other books. I think it was Crown of Midnight. Because she mentions in Crown of Midnight that she used to have a horse, an Asterion mare named Casita. Mm-hmm. This is where we meet Casita. Because Ansel's super freaking brilliant plan is, look at these cool horses that are really pretty. This guy is just gonna like sell them to the highest bidder, and if nobody like buys them or is interested, then they're just gonna like waste here. And Celaena's like, oh, that's a bummer. And Ansel's like, are you a good writer? She's like, yeah, of course. And Ansel jumps on this horse and just immediately starts like booking it out of there. Yeah. Celaena's like, fuck, and like jumps on her horse and also starts like just leaving.
So they get back with these horses to the fortress, and of course they are then greeted by the Mute Master and a few people who know that they did something bad and they stole horses. And so she looks she assumes that this will be handled and punished similarly to how she was punished at her guild by Arobynn. And so she tries to take the blame to protect her friend, even though it was very much Ansel's idea. Because she's like, she wants to do good things. She's going to go save the world. I'm just an assassin. It's going to be very believable if I'm just like, it was my idea. Don't worry. She had nothing to do with it. It was all me. And so she goes, it was my idea. I didn't feel like walking back here, and I thought it would be useful to have horses. And when I saw the Asterion mares, I thought we might as well travel in style. She gave him a shaky half grin. The master's brows rose as he looked between them. For a long, long moment, he just watched them. She then pretty much says, oh, Ansel goes, before you decide our punishment, she turned to Celaena and looked back at the master. Since we like horses so much, maybe we could be on stable duty for the morning shift until Celaena leaves? Celaena almost choked, but she schooled her features into neutrality. You get this idea that, like, she was expecting to be beaten again, and that didn't happen. Which I thought was just such a good indication of her realizing that, like, these assassins have been kind of trained differently, and maybe there is more than just, you know, going out and killing for the sake of killing.
So this is all a huge trick, basically, by Ansel. So her whole plan was that she basically has this agreement with Barrick that she's gonna steal these horses, and she tricks Celaena into helping her with it. And then that, when they go back to the like assassins home fortress, then that will basically give Barrick like
a reason to attack.
Yeah, a reason to attack. And Ansel does try to get Celaena to leave.
Yeah, she pretty much drugs her and then dumps her in the desert with her horse and a note.
Yeah, and like a note that basically is like, don't worry about it. The Mute Master signed your stuff. Here's the things with the seal on it, and you're good to go. But the Mute Master was like, this was the best way that he wanted you, like, taken
to be safe, so you didn't have to be a part of this.
Yes. Well, to be safe, and then Celaena's like finds it super fishy, and doesn't really believe her. So she opens the scroll.
She's like, if that was the case, he would have not wanted me here during the first attack and wouldn't have let me participate in that. So like, why is he now wants me elsewhere during this?
Yeah. So she doesn't really buy it. So she had opened this letter and realized that it was completely blank. So she like hops on Casita and goes, let's see how fast you can run. And like books it back to the Assassin's Fortress. And everything is in complete chaos. Like, shit's on fire. Like, there are dead assassins everywhere. And she just tries to make it through the house through the fortress to get to the master, and just hopes that she like isn't too late. Unfortunately, she is too late, and makes it to the master and finds his son and him like kind of basically on the verge of death.
Yeah, Mikhail is dead.
Yeah, her one friend.
Ilias is on the ground, like pretty much bleeding out, and then the Mute Master is paralyzed.
Yeah,
or so they had immovable.
It looked like they had used like Gloriella to like immobilize him.
Mm-hmm.
And she realizes that like this was all Ansel's fault. Mm-hmm. That Ansel had been planning this like the whole time. And she's basically like, she finds the master, and all he wants is for her to save his son. And she like goes to try to help him when she hears like Ansel like come in the room, and she just instinctively like throws a dagger at her, and it goes like right into Ansel's arm.
So of course Celaena is trying to keep her talking because she is the better assassin. Let's be honest. She's gonna win this fight, so she knows that she can play on Ansel's emotions, even though she's feeling hurt and betrayed because she believed Ansel to be her friend. She knows that she can say things to keep Ansel talking, to keep her distracted, to get the upper hand in the scenario. Because she walks in and she does not have the upper hand. Ansel has a sword pretty much about to cleave the Mute Master's head off of his shoulders. And she's like, if I can just switch our locations, I'm going to try to get you to move away from him. So it's when she throws the dagger, it's when she tries to get her to turn her anger towards Celaena so she can disarm her in some way. She pretty much asks, like, why? Why are you doing any of this? And she says, because I want to take back my homeland. And Lord Barrick promised me soldiers, thousands of them, so that I can march back into my homeland and take it back. And so that it could be ours. It then comes out that she is not the daughter of some lord. Her family was killed. Her father didn't send her here. This was all a ruse to pretty much like save her own life. So Celaena then also feels bad because she was in a similar situation. Her whole family was murdered in front of her, and she was dumped, or not dumped, she escaped. And that's kind of what Ansel went through as well. So,
and Ansel definitely like blames the Mute Master for not helping. Like there is a point in the story where Ansel kind of like gets really frustrated and is like, if I were if I were the person who was in charge of all of these assassins, like, they would be doing more than just sitting in their fortress and, like, hiding out, waiting
Mhm.
for the people who are going to pay them the most to do a job. Like, we'd be defending people. So, like, you do get more information that, like, Ansel doesn't necessarily believe that the master is doing enough.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons that, like, she blames him for having not done anything, and that he's just as bad as all of these other people who are coming in and letting the king of Otterlin, like, do whatever they want.
Mhm. She tells her all of this, and Celaena, of course, can relate to that. There's this one line that she says, she pretty much says, "Don't do it."
Mm-hmm.
And when Ansel says why, in response, she says, "Because I know how it feels to have that kind of hate, Ansel. I know how it feels, and this isn't the way. This," she said louder, "this is not the way." Ansel spat, says the assassin. "I've become an assassin because I had no choice, but you have a choice, Ansel. You've already had a choice. Please don't kill him." Or "You've always had a choice. Please don't kill him." And really, internally, she goes, "Please don't make me kill you," was what she was truly meant to say. Because she knew that she would kill Ansel to save him. Because she, of course, this is where Celaena's toying with the, like, I still want to do good. Like, I have a choice. You also have a choice. It's like her speech to Ansel was really a speech to herself. So she disarms her. She goes to strike the Mute Master, and Celaena pretty much takes her down. She has a knife to her throat, and Ansel doesn't want to die. She thought, I think, this whole time that she had the upper hand. And so pretty much Celaena tells her, "You have 5 minutes to get all of the shit that you want to get and to leave. And I will give you 20 minutes, and then I will go stand on the wall and I will shoot an arrow at you. And if you don't make it out of my pretty much line of sight and over the hill within the 20 minutes, you're going to be dead. Like, that is the only time I'm giving you. 20 full minutes.
Yeah.
Now go." And Ansel
Yeah.
takes it, and she books it. She's like, "All right, I'm out." She doesn't do any more damage. She just leaves. By this point, Ansel, like, runs out of the room. So Selena's like, "I have 20 minutes to, like, make sure Ilias doesn't die and check on the Mute
Yep.
Master and, like, make sure, she calls people in, the healers come, they deal with Ilias, he ends up being fine. The Mute Master starts, like, coming to, and, like, he's obviously, like,
Yeah, the
grateful
drugs are
that,
wearing off.
grateful that he isn't dead and that his son is alive. Like, that is his only priority, is that his son is alive. And the master kind of knew the whole time that there was something up, and someone internally was giving Barrick information. He just didn't know that it was Ansel necessarily. A big reason he didn't ever train Ansel was that he didn't trust her fully.
Yeah.
And when Celaena kind of asked him, like, "Why did you even let her stay?" He pretty much was like, "I wanted her to choose her own fate, and I was hopeful that she would, like, being with us, she would choose the right one."
Yeah. And he tells her this, speaking to her, because he isn't, like, actually mute. He just chooses to speak only when it's necessary or when he deems it the most needed. And she disarms Ansel because he had finally started training her. Like, they had a couple of sessions where the Mute Master had started training her and trains her, like, with a snake and, like, to move the way that a snake does. And that's how that she disarms Ansel. And then he actually speaks to her and tells her that, he wanted her to like choose for herself, to not betray them. But then he does like tell her that for what it's worth, he believes that Ansel sent her away because she does truly care about her.
Mm-hmm.
And Celaena's like, that doesn't make it hurt like any less.
Yeah.
But she does get the letter from him and is able to return like to Arobynn with this letter signed from the Mute Master.
Celaena does also ask him, are you going to tell everyone about what she did? Because no one really knows except for Ilias, because obviously he was there and witnessed it. Otherwise,
and
she
Mikhail's dead.
Yeah.
Who would have been the only other person that knew, because those were the only three that were like on guard, other than like the soldiers that she let in and let them do everything else.
Mm-hmm. So he says, no, I would spare them that anger. Many believed Ansel was their friend, and part of me too believes that at times she was. And this is where he says to her, for what it's worth, Celaena, he rasped, I believe you were the closest thing to a friend Ansel has ever allowed herself to have. And I think she sent you away because she truly cared for you.
Yeah. So cute.
When you give this, so she gets the letter, and I think this whole like interaction between them is it's so powerful to her as a character, because he speaks to her and knows everything that she was like going through and what Arobynn did to her. And it's this last scene of pretty much saying that when you go to your master, when you give this to your master, hold your head high. How is it that you're speaking to me now? I thought your vow of silence was eternal. He shrugged. The world seems to think so, but as far as my memory serves me, I've never officially sworn to be silent. I chose to be silent most of the time, and I've become so used to it that often I forget I have the capacity for speech. But there are some times when words are necessary, when explanations are needed, that mere gestures cannot convey. If you ever want to leave the north, you will always have a home here. I promise you the winter months are far better than the summer, and I think my son would be rather happy if you decided to return too. He chuckled, and Celaena blushed. He took her hand. When you leave tomorrow, you'll be accompanied by a few of my people, because they will be needed to drive the wagon to Exandria. I know that you are indentured to your master, that you still owe him a good deal of money before you are free to live your own life. He's making you pay back a fortune that he forced you to borrow. For saving my life and sparing hers, he flipped open the lid of a trunk, then another, and another. All that gold, and the piece of spider silk the merchant had given her, she couldn't think of the possibilities that wealth would open to her right now. Not right now. When you give your master his letter, also give him this, and tell him that in the Red Desert, we do not abuse our disciples.
Yay!
We love the Mute Master. We love him.
The Mute Master is so good.
And
I changed my mind.
What?
I changed my mind about that this one isn't as good as the other ones. I don't dislike it as much as I thought I did.
I love it. When you said that, I was like, what do you mean? It means so
Here's
much.
the thing. The problem is, again, no, you know what? I still think that I'm right, though. It's longer than it needed to be.
I think it's longer than it needed to be, correct.
It's so good, but I feel like halfway through it, I'm like, okay, great, awesome.
I think the front end wasn't necessary.
Maybe it was just
There's
like
so much like backstory. It's like, okay, we're training in the desert. They could have just been like, all right, she learns that she has to train ahead of time, like before he'll even see her. Then they could say like 2 weeks have passed, and then she goes to this place.
2 weeks.
You didn't need all the like little. There was like
That's
5
true.
days in. There was this thing that happened. 7 days in, she finally like was able to run
on the 5th
most
night.
of it. Yeah. And then it's like week 2, she goes and meets, and she only has 2 weeks left. So like, what difference does it make if she's here or there?
Yeah, it could have just been that like they were published originally as separate novellas.
They're going to be?
So like it didn't feel, I don't remember specifically. They are separate stories. So I this might be not 100% correct, so please don't come for me, internet, if what I'm saying is not 100% true. But I had been told that these were published separately previously, and then they were republished as like this book together. Like they were put all together in one book and published. So it might just be that like when she went to publish this one, it's longer. It was probably really nice for the people who enjoyed her writing at the time that she was publishing it. But now that I'm like, I just want all of the like backstory and lore. Maybe that's one of the things of like, because I read it later, I'm like, I just want to get to the point where I get the juice of like the crux of why this story is important for me to know.
So Celaena leaves the Red Desert, and that is the end of The Assassin in the Red Desert. And we have moved on to the 4th short story, which is The Assassin and the Underworld. And that begins on page 229 for anyone following in your books. When she first arrives back, she has all of the money that the Mute Master gave her sent to her bedroom, and kind of doesn't right off the bat pay off Arobynn.
Yeah, doesn't initially do it.
Yeah, because she's still at odds with how she feels towards him. Like, she knows that he hasn't been treating her well, and the assassins haven't been treated well when there is this whole other assassins guild that has like kind of a much better relationship with each other, and the master's like, we don't beat our assassins. So she's kind of like a little standoffish, but not really sure where she stands with Arobynn, because this is the first time he has ever really done this as a like retribution for her actions. And so she kind of storms in and gives the letter to Arobynn and is like, I did it. I did exactly what you told me to do. It's been X amount of months and I'm back. And now that's that. She's kind of giving him the cold shoulder as they interact. And one of the first things that he says to her is that he's sorry, which I didn't see coming, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me like, it made me at the time kind of be like, oh, wait, does he actually regret everything that he did? I guess we still don't really know. He kind of does.
I'm pretty sure I know. I don't think he regrets shit. I think that he's a manipulative bastard, so I don't believe anything that comes out of his mouth.
That's fair. I think he does manipulate a lot of people. I think he also does care for her. Even if it's just a little bit.
I just don't know how you say you... What did he say in the last one? Like, I want you to remember this. You won't forget this. Beats her. I'm like, okay, no, I don't fucking care if you're sorry.
Yeah. I don't care that he's sorry about that. Like, I don't think Celaena should obviously forgive him. But in that moment, he's definitely playing the, like, it got out of hand and I let my anger get the better of me. And I wouldn't have done it if I wasn't so stressed and angry.
Yeah, sure. Great.
And of course starts buying her things to be like, I'm sorry, here's this fancy thing. I'm sorry, here's this other fancy thing. I'm sorry, I'll take you to a play, which I know is your favorite. I'm sorry, here's another gift. And kind of part of that is he has a big mission that he could get a lot of money for. And he pretty much says, I have another gift for you. And it's a mission. And this time, as repentance for me doing what I did, I won't take any cuts of this one. You'll get all of it. You'll get all the money from this mission. And that mission is to kill Benzo Donoval. They have been hired by his ex-wife, who is being painted as a slave sympathizer, in a sense.
She basically knows that her ex-husband is trying to make a trade agreement with the King of Otterlin to like open this road, and they would use that road to transport slaves, like to Otterlin, because he wants to buy like a bunch of slaves.
Yeah. So pretty much it would be an
basically
easier
like,
path.
I want you to assassinate him because I don't want this road to happen for the slaves.
This road would kind of, the only way they do now is through ships, and it's all like run by the pirates, and this is kind of another way for them to get slaves from Melisande and all of these other lands. And it also would be good for trading of goods, and it's very heavily implied that those goods are mostly going to be slaves brought to Rifthold to then be brought to like Endovier or Calcula, just kind of anywhere. This is also the first time she sees Sam when she gets back after months.
She gets out of the meeting and like Sam like basically runs right into Sam.
Yeah. And with him is a new character, Lysandra. And she is a courtesan, or at least raised courtesan. She is 17? She's
Something
turning
like that.
18, I think is like the whole thing is. So she is 17 and she is about to turn 18, which is when the courtesans get bid out to lose their virginity. And Arobynn has pretty much been working with Clarissa, who is like the madam of the courtesans, who we met when we met Archer. She is raising Lysandra, and Arobynn is really helping to manipulate Lysandra's worth, because when
and like protection
comes the day, protection for her, and when the day comes to sell her virginity, pretty much, he will most likely get a cut. You get this idea that he's kind of in cahoots with Clarissa to like get a cut of whatever is made in some way. Like there's something going on kind of like behind the scenes that you don't really know about, but you have like these feelings. And so Arobynn is like having all these parties to have all these potential bidders come and meet her, and like Sam is on duty of like protect Lysandra. Like don't let any of these like grubby gross men touch her.
Yeah. And Lysandra does not like Celaena. So like Celaena has been the center of attention for years, and Lysandra basically uses like this whole scenario of it like coming close to time for her like bidding party to happen, that like she's the center of attention now, and she basically like uses the fact that like Celaena's getting, or that Lysandra's getting all this time with Sam to like just piss Celaena off. And so Sam basically is like trying to get information from her, like, where have you been? Like, are you doing okay? Because it's been since the night that she was beaten that he's like last saw her, and Lysandra just basically like comes in and fucks it all up, and is just being
she's like, Sam,
so
and, like,
rude. And Celaena basically just gets like all pissed off and just leaves. So like they don't end up talking at all. And she's like, well, he can go spend time with Lysandra. It's fine. I'm gonna go. And I'm like, okay, whatever, Celaena.
Yeah, he's definitely not trying to figure out, and he like brushes Lysandra off and is like trying to like Please stop touching me.
And she even
without
says too,
saying those
while this is happening, that like Sam's always been nice to the courtesans because he's sympathetic to the fact that like they've had to go through that because his mom was a courtesan and his mom was a courtesan and was killed by like an ex-client of
like
hers, basically.
Jealous
like
client, yeah.
Yeah. And so he's of course nice to them. But Celaena's like, not this one. Not nice to this one. Please no.
No. She's annoying and has always been coming for...
Yeah.
Like, pretty much Lysandra is painted as, like, always being jealous of Celaena's relationship with Arobynn.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to them, Arobynn has been helping her, but Celaena has always been kind of, like, a step above her in regards to Arobynn.
Yeah. So Arobynn like continues to shower Celaena with more gifts. They go to like a merchant that is building these like fancy assassin suits for them, and they're like black. They've got hidden compartments all over the place for like weapons and stuff.
Yeah, a big thing right now is because Donovan is in town, and so is like all of these merchants from Melisande. So there's all of these people around town having kind of like a festival almost, or like what we would equate to like a farmer's market. But like there's just a bunch of stands of individuals who have come to like show what they could be like selling in Rifthold. Yeah. And so one of those is a master tinkerer. And so, of course, Arobynn is like, let's get you a fancy suit. And so it is fully like murdered out suit with all these hidden blades and swords and all these things that you can like move your arm in a certain manner and a blade shows up. And it's like a very form-fitting, so you can't... If someone were to capture you, they can't really tell that you have blades on you because of how, like, thin the material is and how, like, close to your body it is. And so...
Fancy assassin suit.
Yeah. So they pretty much... It's fancy assassin suit for Celaena. And then it also is noted that another one's going to be made for Sam. But he's going to have to pay for it.
Which he's going to have to pay for his, which is going to put him in more debt, which is so cool.
Yes.
But she basically secretly asks the merchant guy, like, can you weave spider silk into this? And he's like, yeah, probably. It's like, okay, great.
If you have
she has him
like, we don't have any.
Yeah, she has him like put the spider silk over her heart. Like, she's like, I want it to go on the suit, like, where my heart would go, to, like, be an extra layer of protection. And the guy's like, yeah, I can do that if you give me the spider silk. She's like, don't worry, I got you. We'll be fine. I got it.
We kind of learn later,
I was, like, so excited about
that she actually has the spider silk put into Sam's suit.
Yeah. So she ends up having the silk put into Sam's suit, which is so sweet. I don't even know I don't know when she makes the decision to put it into Sam's suit, because at this point she's still like arguing with him. She could have done it this early on.
Ever since the pirate thing, she's kind of internally been like, I want to protect him. Like, he's a friend of mine now. She still acts like weird towards him, but this happened so early in this section that I really think at this time she asks if he can do it. And then she says to put it here, and she probably tells him to do it in the other suit instead of her own. Just based off her as a character, I feel like she would have done it anyway, because she has this, like, secret... She holds everything, like, secret to herself. That, like...
I know. She never tells anyone anything.
Anyone know I like them, or even give a shit about them, so, like, I'm gonna keep it to myself. Yeah. So...
when she leaves the Tinkerer's Hall, she does run into Sam again. And Sam is like pissed off because she was pissed off with him. And Sam's like, why don't I get any sort of forgiveness, whatever? And like, you're forgiving Arobynn for like what he did to you. Like, he's just giving you gifts and like everything's cool and chill now. and she's just kind of like brushing everything off. And this was one of my favorite quotes that they had. And she like he's trying to like be very honest with her, and she's brushing off every single thing and being like, oh, whatever, like you had a hard summer, that's so sad. And he says, do you want to know what price I asked for forgiving Arobynn, Celaena? My price was his oath that he'd never lay a hand on you again. I told him I'd forgive him in exchange for that. She wished he'd punched her in the gut. It would have hurt less. Not trusting herself to keep from falling to her knees with shame right there, she just stalked down the hall. It's so good. Mm-hmm. Like, Sam just... he does not want to go back to the way that they treated each other before, and she doesn't know any other way to interact with him.
Yeah.
For someone who is so smart, she is so socially inept when it comes to any sort of actual human feelings.
Well, she's been raised to like keep everyone at
I'm on the same page.
Yeah.
But like, she's so unequipped.
But even with Ansel too, so it's like she starts trusting this one person and confides in them a little bit, and then of course they kind of sidestep and are like, just kidding, I'm a bad guy. And she's like, I can't have Sam do this to me too. Like, it would hurt too much if it was Sam.
So they spend more time together because they're basically going on like all of these different trips or missions or whatever to like get information about Donoval. They like go to a lot of it's like them going on missions to like get that information, and then some of it is also just like Lysandra like getting shown off. So like they go to a concert that like Celaena loves, and they are like there to like show her off, and they like get some information about Donoval. She like becomes obsessed with the music, and like it really overtakes her, and then like Sam gets her the music later as like a gift, which is so sweet.
Yeah,
and so still she's like, everything's fine, don't worry about it, I'm not that into him.
Yeah, she gets back from this concert or the orchestra, and she can't get the music out of her head. Like, while she's there, she stands up and gives a standing ovation and is crying, and like you learn that this like song that they played really emotionally impacted her. And so she gets back, and they're having another party to like really sell Lysandra to like all of these people with a bunch of money. And Sam, of course, has to like shadow her and protect her and like keep her away from all these people who want to like do unspeakable things to her, pretty much. And she walks off to another room because she's like, I have this beautiful gown on. I don't want to just go to bed. So she goes to the pianoforte and she starts trying to play the song from her memory. And there's a part of it that she can't remember, and Sam like stumbles upon her playing and is like, it sucks, right? Not remembering how to do that, or like not recalling it to a T. It's going to bother you, huh? That you can't remember to a T exactly what's playing in your head. And so, of course, like, they're teasing each other, but he, like, obviously puts that back into his mind later, and then finds the sheet music and then gifts it to her, which is such a lovely gesture. It's, like, the first real gesture of, like, he cares more for her than he is leading on.
Yeah.
And it's very lovely.
And this is also, like, the first conversation that they have where, like, Celaena starts asking him, like, about why he's spending so much time with Lysandra. And, like, he tells her that it's, like, because Arobynn told him to. Like, he's not trying to bid for Lysandra. He is only guarding her because that's what he was specifically asked to do. That was his task. And she, like... again, still can't just have a nice conversation with him, like hints at that there might have been a romance between her and the son of like the Mute Master, which like pisses Sam off.
Of course, yeah.
And she's like, maybe that wasn't the right direction to go with this conversation. So then she like hard pivots and is like, help me with Donoval.
Can you help me?
Help me and
I
I'll
need you to
split
help
the
me.
money with you.
And he's like,
like,
what do you mean you need me to help you? And she's like, I need you. I'll split it. Just, can you, I need help with this task. Sorry. Can you help me?
And he tells her to keep the money. I don't need it. Ruining another slave trade agreement will be enough to me. It's just, and then they're like, they agree to like start working on it tomorrow and to like have breakfast. So now they're like spending more time with each other because they have to, because she engineered a reason for them to have to spend time together. Good job.
Celaena, a character you're making progress. A reason that's not to manipulate them. Wow.
Yep.
They start staking out Donoval's place. They learn about his guards that are guarding. He's pretty much renting a place. And Donoval is like, they note many times that he's like one of the most protected people for being so just like regular. Like they pretty much describe him as like, why is he bothering? Like, why does he think he's so like great? Like he has so many guards.
Yeah.
And one in particular, his like main guard is Philip that we learn about. And so Celaena makes it a point to really like trail Philip a lot. Follows him to a pub. He drinks a bunch and then notices that like he drank a lot, but he's not stumbling. He's still very sure of himself. He had like an hour off or whatever. And then he goes right back to Donoval's, like the place he's staying. It's not Donoval's estate, but they're pretty much staying in like a fancy house that they're renting for the time that they're there. She notes that like all of the guards are like very alert, and at no point do they kind of have any downtime. Like there's no real gap in their ability to like guard Donoval. So she's realizing that this task is going to be a lot harder than she thought initially. And so she kind of says all of that to Sam and really is now leaning on him a lot more to be like, I don't really know how we're going to get to Donoval because he's constantly guarded. There's always at least 2 guards next to him at all times, especially this Philip guy who like literally never sleeps, like is just kind of always there. There's guards at every corner. There's guards in every room. There's guards on every floor of this house. Like there are dozens of guards that they would have to get through to get to him versus any other time she's gone and done anything. It's kind of been like, oh, there's someone that travels with this person, or there's like a handful of people that travel with this person. And there's kind of always like a slip up in their like ability to watch them at once. There's like a changing of the guards that like causes a gap in time where they're uncovered, and they haven't found that.
Yeah. So like she thinks they find out about a meeting that's going to take place between like the Donoval and like basically the king's emissary or whoever they would be treating with to kind of set up this thing. And they find out that it is going to be like at his I think it's like at his home. So their plan is to break into his house because although their mission, like she has been tasked with killing him, like they still want to get as much information as they can about like what's going on with the slave trade, because that's their main goal, is to disrupt whatever would happen for this slave like trade route to be put up. So they decide to break into his house so that they can try to get like the documents. And Celaena is like, I'm gonna do this myself. Like I'm gonna go alone and break in. And
she tries to bring Sam with her, and he has to go to some luncheon or dinner or whatever with Lysandra because Arobynn is like forcing him, and she's pretty much like, fine, I can do it myself then, whatever, I don't need you. It's another turn where she like takes 2 steps towards Sam, and then this is one of those, she goes, Lysandra's involved and I'm gonna act petty and conniving, and I'm gonna be like, fuck you then, I'll do it myself, I won't wait for you. And he's like, we can wait till after, like I can meet up with you. And she's like, no, don't bother. He'll be dispatched before I even get back. Like, it'll be fine.
Yeah, she says, Sam, I freed 200 slaves in Skulls Bay and took down Rolf. I think I can handle this.
He's like, you did that with me if you didn't forget.
Yeah, and he basically says, like, I am going to... He's like, I'll check in on you, like, when you're done. Like, I'll come visit you after so that, you know, and see if you, like, need any more help. So she basically goes to his house to break in, and she basically finds out that, like, it was a trap. That they have been watching her, like, this whole time, and that they knew that she was going to try something. And they, like, Phil, who's, like, the big guard that was the only one that she didn't see leave with the rest of them, basically stayed back to, like, trap her. Mm-hmm. And they capture her, they put her down in the sewers and, like, chain her down there, and then leave her to die because the sewers, like, get flooded.
Yeah, so it's pouring rain and they flush the sewers anyway, like,
yeah,
on a, like, period of time. And because it's raining so much, they were likely to flush it sooner because of all the rain that they were getting, which also goes into the sewer system. So they tie her up to this chair. Disgusting.
So gross.
Luckily, she has already received her fancy suit that has all the hidden blades. So she unties herself. Well, she gets one of the blades loose, cuts herself in the process because, you know, she's tied up. She cuts through the ropes. She gets loose and she's like, fine, whatever. I'll just go in the way that they came into the sewers, which is, like, through these two metal doors that are sealed so that water doesn't go up into, like, the homes. It's, like, where people throw out trash, people hide, whatever. She gets to these doors and they're bolted shut, as one would assume, because they know the water is coming through. And so the water's raising and she's on this little platform. And she's trying to think of ways to get out of this damn sewer, because if not, she's going to drown either way. Like, the water's going to come whether she gets out or not. So she's, like, looking for a ladder, looking for a porthole, like, looking for something to find her way out. She eventually gets to, I guess, like, a tunnel that kind of goes up to one of the, like, sewer grates.
She basically finds a manhole.
Yeah, she finds, like, a passage.
Rusted closed.
Mm-hmm.
And she, like, cannot get it open. And there's, like, nowhere else for her to go. The water is, like, rising and rising and rising. And she's just, like, screaming for help because she's got, like, no other option. And there's, like, no one around. Everyone's inside because of the rain. And they know the sewers are going to get, like, flushed. So, like, no one is around. And she's, like, realizing that she's going to die. And she finally hears Sam, like, calling out to her because Sam's, like, must have been on his way back from he's, like, on his way back from, like, checking on where she was supposed to be, going back to her place. And he, like, is trying to get her out, and, like, he's struggling too, and they're both trying to, like, push on the door, and she's, like, getting ready to go underwater basically because she's running out of air. And she says, take my body home to Terrace and Sam. And then, like, she goes under. And then, thankfully, literally the beginning of the next chapter is Sam basically doing CPR to, like, bring Celaena back.
Yeah.
And
there were two women that brought, like, a crowbar and opened it.
Yeah, ladies with crowbars. Thank you. This is great.
These two ladies, like, she opens her eyes and sees Sam and then two women, and one has a crowbar. And that's, like, the only thing you get of these, like, two women. And you're like, who are they? I want to know who they are. Like, they literally just saved the day.
I'm going to spoil it. These two women never come up again. And it makes me so upset.
They're so important. They did so much.
I wanted them to, like, come up later or something. They never come up again.
Yeah.
Anyways, so this was really disgusting. So she, like, vomits basically immediately. As
once she has all the sewer water in her lungs.
She takes, like, 3 fucking baths. She takes a bath in alcohol which
Yeah,
I
she
thought
talks
was
about
so
filling
funny.
the cup with like gin or something, as she
So
said.
she like dunks her hand in gin because her hand was cut to like disinfect it. And then she like takes a bath and then gets out of the bath, fills the bath with alcohol, gets in the bath, takes
Fully
a bath in the
submerged
alcohol,
herself, yeah.
and then takes all of that out, takes another bath, and still like just doesn't. I mean, I don't think it's an overreaction at all. I also feel like I would want to bathe in alcohol.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a comment when she's done. They joke about the hot water like not
Is it the
existing,
hot water?
and she's like, "Can you blame me?"
I wanted to see if you were finally done with all the washing. There's no hot water left. Don't expect me to apologize for that.
Yeah.
Do I ever expect you to apologize for anything?
This is also a point where she goes, "You could have let me die," she mused. "I'm surprised you weren't dancing with glee over the grate." He let out a low laugh that traveled along her limbs, warming her. "No one deserves that sort of death, Celaena. Not even you. And besides, I thought we were beyond that." Like, yes, we are beyond that, Sam.
She's
just
trying. She's trying.
So they have their heart to heart, and this is the first time that Celaena says thank you to Sam, and she pretty much says, "Thank you for saving me. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for involving you in what happened in Skulls Bay and for what Arobynn did to you because of it." He pretty much is like, that was my choice. Like, that was not your choice. She then also says, because they're a team now and are going to go after Donovan, she goes, "We just added one more person to kill on that list, and that's Philip, because he left me in a fucking sewer, and I'm not about that life." So the next day she sleeps in because obviously she had a traumatic experience, and bathes a couple more times, probably. And she meets Arobynn in his study. And she arrives with the 3 trunks of money that were given to her by the Mute Master. And this is where she says, "I think this covers my debt. And then some. I want to keep working with you," she said carefully. He looked at her like this before, on the night he'd beaten her. "But you don't own me anymore." So pretty much she finally gives him the money and is like, "Hey, I don't want to be indebted to you anymore. But I would be glad to still work for you." Because at this point she's like, she doesn't want to owe him anything, but also doesn't want to rid herself, because it's the only like family she knows is like the Assassin's Guild.
She also like, I don't think that she hates her job. Like, she likes being an assassin.
She enjoys working for Arobynn, I believe.
Yeah. She just like wants control over what she chooses to pick.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to be owned by another person anymore, which is great. And like, he basically says, "Can you blame me for hoping this day would never come?" And she like says again that like, "I do want to keep working with you." And he basically is like, "Yeah, okay, you're free. But if you really want to keep the contract, you can keep it."
Yeah. I do really like where he goes, "Do I want to know where that money came from?" She's like, "I just saved the Mute Master's life, and so that was his payment to me for saving his life." And he's like, interesting. Well, good luck with Donovan tomorrow.
Yep.
Have fun in that. He goes,
"So
let me know
long as you don't charge me for it."
Yeah. He's like, "Let me know if you need any help." And she's like, "As long as you don't charge me for it, sure."
I would never do that to you.
I thought that was I thought it was going to be a like joking section of them like joking back and forth. And the fact that he didn't return her smile and set down the paper. "I would never do that to you." Something like hurt flickered in his eyes. This is like, these are the points where I'm like, does he even have like, these are the little inklings where like, he actually kind of cares about her, but like, then he's also just,
I don't know. Maybe he's not
a raging lunatic.
he's not a 1000% piece of shit. He's a 999% piece of shit.
Yeah. I don't know.
Sure.
It's just these little things where it's like this like slight bit of hurt went across his face. And then he schooled his emotions again. Where I'm like, she caught on this, like catches on to this, and he like kind of cares about her a little.
So they go out to try to, her and Sam kind of meet up to go and start like putting their plan together to kill Donovan, because they still have to get in, you know, even though she failed to get the documents, she still has to like go get that stuff. So basically, like, while they're talking and formulating a plan, Sam brings up that like he heard that she paid off her debt to Arobynn. And he says that he's thinking about leaving. And she is like, leave to go where? And he says going down to like Eelway or Banjali. And she's like, for like a mission? And he's like, no, like to go forever. Like there's no reason for me to stay here. And she's like, does not understand it. She's like, there's absolutely reason for you to stay here. You can't go. And he's like, there's no point. You are free now. You can leave. You can go do what you want. I am going to leave if I can too. And she like wants him to stay, and she wants him to stay, but she's not picking up on why he wants to leave. And this is when he knows that he can't stay because he has like revealed too much to Arobynn. So the night that she was beaten, Sam had been yelling at Arobynn that he would kill him. Just like over and over again. And Sam is like, he's just gonna keep taking advantage of the fact that I will do anything to protect you and will continue to use you against me, and I can't stay here. And she's like wants him to stay, and he's like, I can't stay. And she said, but why can't you let it go? And he says, because I love you. I love you. I have for years, and he hurt you and made me watch because he'd known how I always felt. But if I asked you to pick, you'd choose Arobynn, and I can't take it. The only sounds were their breathing, an uneven beat against the rushing of the sewer river. So gross to have this adorable moment next to the sewer river, but whatever, we'll take it. You're a damned idiot, she breathed. You're a moron and an ass and a damned idiot. He looked like she had hit him, but she went on and grasped both sides of his face. Because I'd pick you. And then she kissed him. Yay!
Finally.
Celaena's done being dumb.
Yay.
We're so happy.
I love it.
Oh, it's so great. So anyways, they kiss by the sewer and then they go kill a guy. So romantic.
Mm-hmm.
So cute the way assassins do things together.
So
Assassins
lovely.
who kiss by sewers and kill people stay together forever.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the reason they were in the sewer was because they were kind of trying to scout out the doors that are there to figure out when the maids get rid of the trash.
Yeah.
And like when that will open and be an entry point. Because she's like, silly Philip, he brought me out this way, so now I know that this is an entry point that is not guarded because it's through the sewer. And they don't expect people to come in through the sewer. And because it's locked. But they also don't expect me to sneak in when the trash comes out to get dumped down the sewer. Which is exactly what she does. She sneaks in behind and hides in the cellar. Which happens to be like their wine cellar. And that is their way in to then start their rampage through this home.
Yeah.
So she makes it upstairs into like a hidden area after she has unlocked the cellar doors so that later Sam can come in and start a fire, which will then be a distraction to everyone else in the manor. She hides in an armoire in the office of Donovan. So she's hiding out. The time comes, 7:30, which is like their meeting time. Donovan and his partner walk into his office, and she finds where his hidden papers are in a floorboard, and so she has them. And when he goes to look for them, that's when she jumps out and slits his throat. Unfortunately, the other guy is like, well, shit, and books it. And is like yelling at the time, too. Like there's a kerfuffle. He hits the ground, the body hits the ground. And so like people are alerted in the house that something's happening. And he books it. There's also then an explosion downstairs. And she's like, Sam, what the fuck?
You're supposed to start a fire. That's not a little bit more than a fire, but okay.
So we don't know what was actually down there. There's alcohol, but like, okay, I guess the alcohol exploded maybe, or something else. Who knows? But there is an explosion. And the other guy like runs. So then she's face to face with Philip. Of course, Philip comes first to try to stop her. And she gets like a slice on Philip, like pretty much stabs him in some manner, and he's like dying. And as he's dying, he calls her like a stupid girl. You don't know anything. Philip is about to die, and he says, Donovan loved his country. You don't know anything. And then he dies. So Celaena's like, I know this much. I know that I can take you. And so, there's that. But she then chases this guy down. Like, chases the other guy that ran away. We don't know who he is. He's just a cloaked figure. When I heard this, and you learn that Donovan's not actually a bad guy, and he is trying to stop the slave trade, and he's not actually part of it.
Yeah, the papers that she ends up getting from, like, chasing this guy down basically reveal that he was trying, that, like, the roles were reversed. People. That they, like, Donovan was the one that was trying to get the road shut down and prevent the slave trade, and that his ex-wife was actually the one that was trying to do the, like, get the road put together and get the slave trade up and running.
So it turns out Celaena is on the wrong side of the deal.
That she was misled.
Manipulated. Yeah, she was manipulated to kill the wrong person. Yeah. And so when she's chasing this guy, she realizes that he's at a dead end. He also realizes this. He torches the papers in his hands and then immediately drinks poison and kills himself so that no one can torture him and get any information away. After you find out that, like, these people weren't the bad guys, I immediately, like, in my brain flipped back to all of the rebels and how they dressed and how they were always cloaked in a certain manner. And I believe that Donovan was working with the rebels, and that was one of the rebels.
Probably.
Who then killed themselves to save people. So that
save the information.
Yeah.
So he can't be tortured.
She also realizes it, and those papers weren't fully torched when she grabs them. So she reads them partially, and she is like, well, he killed himself for a reason, and then torches the rest of them the rest of the way. She still has the main documents of, like, these list of names of, like, these people that are potentially rebel sympathizers. Now that I'm thinking about that, I have a feeling that this list is the same list that the king was using to send her when she was the champion. This is the list of people.
It could have been. It's a year later.
But this
so
list,
it'd be almost,
it's implied that
it's like a year and a half later that she would get the list. So yeah, I mean, it's possible that all of those people are still on the list by the time it gets to her.
Yeah. he has a list. You learn that he has a list of rebel sympathizers, but you don't actually know much about it except for it's a list that the king has acquired. Yep. And here we're learning a backstory where the ex-wife, Leifer, she is going to sell this list to the king to be able to have this trade route. And so, sorry, just thinking that through now.
Yep.
My brain has connected that list to the potential list that the king has and was sending Celaena as his champion off to kill people.
Yeah.
So
it's probably the same list.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So this happens. She comes back to Arobynn. She finds out that this was all in vain and that she's killed these like a little pissed. People. Yeah. Just a little.
And Arobynn isn't really buying any of her bullshit either because, like, she torches that place. Like, they leave no discernible evidence whatsoever. And Arabynn's like, you went a little off the rails there. Haven't seen you, like, leave such a big mess in a while. She's like, oh, that's weird. Don't know what you're talking about. Could there be a reason why maybe I torched all of that stuff? She knows that she had been deceived, and Arobynn like admits to it and was like, yep, there was no tree deal, at least not between Donoval and his source in Rifthold. The real meetings about the slave trade negotiation had been going on in the Glass Castle between the king and Leifer. It was a point of persuasion in convincing him to let them build their road. And he basically admits to like, I knew that the only way to get you to kill Donovan was to tell you that he was the one that was doing the slave trade.
This is where you kind of think that she killed all these people under these guises that they're bad people, and it's how she kind of justified it in her brain. Like, he could have been manipulating her for years and having her kill people, even if they weren't bad people, just because they weren't bending to his rules or Otterlin's rules or whoever. Like, we don't know. Arobynn works for himself, but he also kind of like, you don't know if he has ties to other people too, like the king.
Yeah. Celaena says, is this punishment for Skull's Bay? Arobynn studied her. While I might regret beating you, Celaena, you did ruin a deal that would have been extremely profitable for us. Like she was part of this disgusting mess. You might be free of me, but you shouldn't forget who I am, what I'm capable of. As long as I live, she said, I'll never forget that. She turned on her heel, striding for the door, but stopped. Yesterday, she said, I sold Casita to Leifer Bardingale. She'd visited Bardingale's estate in the morning of the day she was set to infiltrate Donoval's house. The woman had been more than happy to purchase the Asterian horse. She hadn't once mentioned her former husband's impending death. And last night, after Celaena had killed Donovan, she'd spent a while staring at the signature at the end of the transfer of ownership receipt, so stupidly relieved that Casita was going to a good woman like Bardingale. And, Arobynn asked, why should I care about your horse? Celaena looked at him long and hard. Always power games, always deceit and pain. The money is on its way to your vault at the bank. He said nothing. As of this moment, Sam's debt to you is paid, she said, a shred of shining victory through her growing shame and misery. From right now until forever, he's a free man. So sweet. And then immediately is so sad because he says, I suppose that's a good thing because I spent all the money you gave me when I was at Lysandra's bidding last night. My fault feels a little empty because of it. The money she had sacrificed, used it to win her bidding, which is so sad. This is like the last straw for her too. She says, I'm moving out. She purchased an apartment and she's moving there today. And Arabynn's smile grew. Do come back and visit us sometime, Celaena.
This is where you're like, does he care? It's a
No,
manipulative
1,000% shitty. I just... Ugh. So she moves out. And basically, like, the last little scene is Sam moving in with her. It's just like, I just left all of my stuff in the front room. Is that cool? She's like, we'll figure out where everything goes later. He says, "How can I ever repay you?" She closed her eyes. "You don't have to." He brushed his lips against hers. "I love you," he breathed against her mouth. "And from today onward, I want to never be separated from you. Wherever you go, I go. Even if that means going to hell itself. Wherever you are, that's where I want to be forever."
And that's the end of The Assassin and the Underworld.
Now it's time for suffering in Assassin and the Empire, where Sarah sends all good things to die.
The last 100 pages. Almost exactly.
Is it?
337 to 435. Almost exactly 100 pages.
100 pages of suffering. Thank you, Sarah. So
Love it here.
This one picks up. This section is the most contemporary rom-com shit I've ever read from her. Because this entire thing, the entire first half of this is literally just Celaena and Sam trying to live together, find work, and exist within like the same space together. It's so domestic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so cute and I love it, but it like threw me off for the first half. I was like, oh, this is so, I don't know, like the two of them just trying to figure out like how to survive. Basically they are struggling. They are struggling to survive because they're not really in Arobynn's good graces anymore. And their main source of income is their assassin work. And Arobynn has basically said no one's allowed to bring them work. So they're not getting any jobs. They're not making any money. Sam has been going to like these fighting pits basically to fight and try to win money. And Celaena hates it because people die in these like fighting pits. So they're not making a lot of money, and like they only have like what they've got between the two of them, and like that's not going to last forever if neither of them can make any money. So they start like looking for jobs because Celaena doesn't want him like fighting in the pits or whatever.
And so they decide that they want to leave Rifthold. But the money that they have together so far is not going to be enough to get them out and to reestablish somewhere else. And so they decide that it would probably be in their best interest to take one last contract. And the contract that Sam finds is to kill Farron and Jane, who are the crime lords. Pretty much Jane is like the crime lord of Rifthold. And Farron is his like twisted second hand who like you learn that he gets a lot of like joy out of torturing people is one of his features that we learn is very similar to one of the other assassins that Celaena fought with in To Become Champion. Kind of leaves his body's mutilated. Farron is like on that level of twisted. Like he is torturing people until they physically cannot be alive anymore. Like he wants them to feel pain. Sam comes back with this big contract for them. She is like, "You're out of your fucking mind. Like, do you know who these people are? Like, do you know why I don't like you fighting there? It's because these people run that. And like, no, I don't want to be anywhere near them. Like, we're gonna die. Like, we're all gonna die. Everyone will die in this scenario. Like, no.
Except for the people that we want to die."
Yes. And he's like, "It's fine. We're the two best. Like, we're gonna do this. Like, it'll be fine." So she's like, "I'll think about it." Takes a day or two. She ends up coming to his side and saying, "You're right.
Yeah.
We need to be rid of the guild and we need to be rid of this place." So she pretty much goes to Arobynn and pays off their debt for being in the guild. Or they go together. and offer to pay off the debt of being in the guild. And he gives a number that is like the exact amount of money that's in her bank account, pretty much. And she's like, well, fuck. Okay. And so this is when she's still trying to make her decision on whether or not she wants to take this contract. And she just says, yep, we want to be freed. And Arobyn's like, okay, cool. And she's like, I'll transfer all the money into your account. And then Sam's not happy. And she's like, well, we're going to take this contract, so it'll be fine. And then we'll leave. We'll leave Rifthold and we'll like start anew. So now their plan is to kill these two people. Sam, of course, wants to take the lead. And she realizes that like he's kind of been in her shadow forever. And so this is his like, this is my thing. And so she kind of like lets him. And he's like, I'll take out Farron and then we can get to Jane. Like, it's fine. I'll go and take out Farron first. I don't need your help. You can pack so that we can leave. And then tomorrow, or like the next day, not tomorrow, the following day, you can take out Jane and like it'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And so they stake out kind of around everywhere, and they realize that Farron is not really guarded. Like, he travels to and from using the same exact wagon. He goes to the vaults to collect dues and is torturing people down there that they don't really like know who they are, but like Farron is like not a good dude. So it really is solidifying their like, we're fine taking out this man. Like, he's not good.
Yeah. During like all of their conversations of like staking out and stuff, and we do find out where she got I am Celaena Sardathian and I will not be afraid. Mm-hmm. And it's from Sam. Celaena
she pretty much tells him I'm
deep
scared.
Down, yeah, she says deep down, I'm a coward. I'm a coward and I'm scared. I'm scared all the time, always. He removed her hand from his chest to kiss the tips of her fingers. I get scared too, he murmured into her skin. You want to hear something ridiculous? Whenever I'm scared out of my wits, I tell myself, my name is Sam Cortland, and I will not be afraid. I've been doing it for years. It was her turn to raise her brows. And that actually works. He laughed onto her fingers. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But it usually makes me feel better to some degree, or it just makes me laugh at myself a bit. So cute.
So cute.
And it makes it so sad.
This whole time, because we've read the other books, like because I read the other books, I knew that this was the end of Sam. And it is just awful. I didn't want to have to know.
It feels so like reading it is so much worse. And so it's not just that it's the end of Sam. What hurts the most about this is that they were set up. It wasn't like someone made a mistake and that he died because of, you know, something that they had done. She and Sam were misled and tricked, and it was all just like a trap to get Sam basically away from Celaena.
Yeah, the end goal was, I believe, to capture Celaena.
Yeah. So Sam
was just another pawn in it.
Sam goes to kill Farron. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't come home. Like, hours go by. The next day comes. It's like noon the next day, and she's been like panicking this whole time and like goes to search for him, goes back home, goes back out again, goes back home, and then she comes home and the door is like slightly open, so she like gets excited and goes inside, and it's just Arobynn sitting like in her house, and he just says, I'm sorry. And they had delivered his body to the assassin's keep because they thought that's where he still lived. And he was dead. And he had been brutally tortured, and she like demands to see the body, and Arobynn is like, no, you can't see it. You
Nope,
don't want
you
to.
don't want that.
You don't want to see it. You can't see it. She does go because at the end of the day, I wish that she didn't have to see it. I 100% know why she had to go see it. She can't trust him that it's real.
Yeah.
Like, if she had not gone and seen it, she would never really have known whether Arobynn was just fucking playing some nasty trick on her.
Yeah.
And he is just almost beyond recognition, like, brutalized. So this is the only part where, like, you know, we may have skipped the trigger warnings, because at this point, guys, they're the same trigger warnings. They're still going through the trigger warning. But, like, damn. The gore in this one is more than any of the other ones up until this point. So it's hard to read. It's very sad. And it like breaks her. And of course, because she can't deal with grief, the way that Celaena breaks all the time is that she makes rash decisions and tries to go kill people when she shouldn't. When she's not in the right frame of mind to. Yeah. So she goes after Farron.
Yeah. At this point, you get this, like, almost fatherly type reaction out of Arobynn towards her, where you're like, okay, so he's manipulative. But here's another point where you think he might care about her, because he keeps saying, no, you don't want to see this body. Like, I promise you. And then you learn that, like, maybe she probably didn't want to see the body. And that he was trying to protect her in some manner a little bit, because Farron did torture him. Like, I think it's noted that he, like, removed his eyes as well.
Yeah, it's so bad.
And you're like, that is, like, torture beyond torture. And Arobynn then, like, carries her to her room after she falls asleep, like, next to his corpse, and, like, takes care of him, or takes care of her in a sense, and, like, has this plan to go and seek revenge, and has changed the way the lock mechanism is on her door, so she is locked into her room, and has, like, taken all her weapons and, like, hidden all of the things that she would use to go out and enact revenge.
Mm-hmm.
But you learn that that's all, like, a trick too, to, like, get her to leave and get her to start doing like,
because she basically gets frustrated that, like, they're gonna go and take care of it, and that Farron's not gonna be her kill. Like, she wants to be the one to kill Farron, and she's pissed that, like, they would go and get revenge,
do it,
and she doesn't get to be involved. So she, like, although I love the part where she says she, like, pulls shit out of her bed
and, like, yeah.
Yeah, she, like, pulls pieces out from her bed that she had, like, hidden weapons, and she was like, I didn't take them with me because they're not very good weapons, but they're gonna work great now.
They'll do.
That's just crazy. That part did make me chuckle. She's like, all right, well, I know where there are weapons stashed.
She does go to leave, and a character that we didn't really talk about him much, but he is pretty much, like, similar to Farron. Wesley is Arobynn's, like, #1 guard, and is always kind of there outside of his door, always there, like, to protect him. Celaena sneaks out through the window because she has no other way to get out of the fucking room, because they've locked her in and, like, taken all her stuff. She sneaks out the window, and Wesley runs into her and is like, where are you going? What are you doing? Where the hell do you think you're going? He breathed, not loosening his grip on her shoulders, even as she pressed her dagger to the side of his throat. Get out of my way, she growled, hardly recognizing her own voice. Arobynn can't keep me locked up. I'm not talking about Arobynn. Use your head and think, Celaena. A flicker of her, a part of her that had somehow vanished since she shattered that clock, realized that this might be the first time he'd ever addressed her by her name. Get out of my way, she repeated, pushing the edge of the blade harder against his exposed throat. I know you want revenge, he panted. I do too, for what he did to Sam. I know you. She flicked the blade, angling enough that he reared back to avoid her slicing a deep line across his throat. Don't you understand? He pleaded, his eyes gleaming in the dark. It's all just a... But the fire rose up in Celaena, and she whirled, using the move the Mute Master had taught her that summer, and Wesley's eyes lost focus as she slammed the pommel of her dagger into the side of his head. He dropped like a stone. So you get this... Wesley's trying to tell her to not go because it's a trap. And...
she is incapable of hearing anything.
Yeah. She realizes it later when she's captured that,
yeah, well, it's too late at that point.
Wesley was trying to warn me not to go because clearly he hears everything because he's at Arobynn's fucking side all the goddamn time.
Yeah. So she goes to Farron's place, finds basically like a window to jump through, and literally jumps right into the 5 of them, like standing there waiting for her because of course it's a trap. She's able to, like, kill some of them, but gets captured, immobilized, like, drugged. She kills
with Jane,
the Gloriella.
Which is, like, the head.
Yeah.
Of the
so
thing.
she does kill Jane, but isn't able to kill Farron and gets drugged and immobilized. And then it's basically revealed that she's not actually going to get tortured by Farron. She's going to get delivered to the King of Adarlan.
Yes.
So he, like, taunts her basically and is like, I would have loved to have kept you and we could have had fun. Whatever fucking Farron's idea of fun is horrifying. Makes me physically nauseous. But she ends up being handed over to the King of Adarlan. So this is how she ends up in the salt mines of Endovier. She goes to the
Farron
King of
does
Adarlan.
say something before she's sent when he's like torturing her, and it's not torturing her, but like something that I think
he's
really
scaring
hits
the
home
shit
with
out of her.
Celaena is, to be honest, he went on, his eyes devouring every inch of her in a way that made her stomach start to twist. I'm disappointed. You walked right into our little trap. You didn't even stop to think twice about it, did you? Farron smiled. Never underestimate the power of love. Or is it revenge? She couldn't convince her fingers to shift. Even blinking was an effort. That, like... I'm like, Celaena, please think.
No,
I understand.
you don't do that.
You loved Sam.
She's only 17.
Take a second and think.
She can't.
Before you
She's a
do
hothead.
all of these things.
She can't do it, ever!
Yeah. So like you said, she gets delivered.
She gets delivered to
She gets
the King
knocked
of
out
Adarlan.
first.
Yeah, she gets
like
knocked out.
comes to in like the dungeons of the castle.
Yeah. She gets dragged in front of the king. The king, she has one more sassy comment of the king is basically ready to sentence her. And he's like, do you have any last words? And she goes, make it quick.
Yeah.
And the King of Adarlan goes, nah, I'm good. We're not going to do that. And sentences her to 9 lifetimes in Endovier, which is obscene.
Which is what, like 9 months?
Yeah, pretty much, because no one survives that long. Anyways, it's fine. She's never making it out alive.
She makes it past 9 months.
She does.
As we know.
That's true. We do. Because
his goal is that she's going to die there. And part of that is she tells the guards pretty much is like, you will be sent with orders to keep you alive for as long as possible, so you will have the chance to enjoy Endovier's special kind of agony. You're just like, fuck you.
Yep. So, the final bit is that this is like how she ends up in Endovier. The last chapter is basically that this was all fucking orchestrated by Arobynn.
Mm-hmm.
But, so the thing that's interesting about the end of this, and I think this is where we're going to end, so we can just kind of chat a little bit about what your theory is with this. Farron and Arobynn are talking, and Arobynn basically is like, I thought that your plan was to rescue her after,
like on the day,
like so basically like when they were getting sentenced. Yeah,
yeah,
like when she was getting sentenced, they were basically either gonna like take her out of the dungeons and like,
or intercept the like beheading
like
or whatever
anything
was
like
gonna
that.
be. Yeah.
And they don't do it. Like, Arobynn doesn't do that. But the whole reason that he did this in the first place was because he doesn't share his toys, which is also gross. But I don't get why he doesn't save her. Like, this, like, if we're talking, like, he has some sort of fatherly weird thing going on, I really don't get why he doesn't try to get her out.
I think his plan from the beginning was to manipulate her. He was doing all these like slave trade dealings behind her back. He didn't think she was going to step out of line in the Pirate Lord area, and he had to pivot. Because
you
he's
think
like,
that just
now
like by the
she
time
is no
he gets
longer
to the
my...
end,
I think he thought she
she's
was going
too
to
far
follow
gone.
in his footsteps.
Hmm.
And she's starting to have a conscience now. And so I think his original plan was to get to this point and to save her, and then she would be forever indebted to him again. But once she paid for herself to be free, and then she paid for Sam to be free, and then paid off their debt to the guild, he pivoted and was like, well, she's no longer my prodigy because she is going to fight me. Like, she's going to leave and then go and do something. Like, he knows that there's something about her that is
that's
special.
The thing that's crazy to me is, like, still, even after...
He wanted her on his side and knew that he lost her.
Like, Endovier seems extreme to me. Like, he doesn't want her dead. But, like, even if it's Endovier...
I think
like,
at this point, he's kind of like...
But he tries to get her to not go after Jane and Farron. Like, before she pays the debt off.
Yeah.
He
like,
basically
way
is like,
before.
even I'm not stupid enough to say to go after the two of them.
Maybe he wanted Sam dead, and he didn't realize at the time that she was so far gone.
Maybe. That's the only part where I'm like, I'm just not picking up on why he never...
Yeah, pretty much Farron says to him, like, why did you do it? And he says, because I don't like sharing my belongings. And at this point, my brain was like, is he referring to Celaena? Like, sharing her with Sam?
Yeah.
Or is he referring to his guild? He no longer wants her to take over. And he's being, like, offered something better by the king of Otterlyn. Like, there's something in the mix that, like, he's being offered to, like, outlive people or something. I don't know. The king still has magic, so he's probably like, if you take this black ring, you'll be, like, alive forever.
My God.
And you can always be the assassin king. I don't know.
Yeah.
She does travel. There is the part where she travels to Endovier.
Yeah.
Which, there's only a little bit of this that comes up in other books when she's traveling places, is there's a white stag that shows up.
The Lord of the
North. Mm-hmm. Our stag.
This guy.
When they're going through a section, they're like camping, I guess. She's still in like a wagon, but like all of the guards
she's still in her
like transferring
wagon jail.
her. Yeah. There's a stag as they're approaching, and then it kind of vanishes, and she's trying to like work up the nerve of like not just crumbling in on herself and like holding her head high and like, I'm not just gonna go out like this, like that's not how this is gonna work. And then she gets this like breeze that comes through that smells of pine and of terracin. It's like a breeze from the north that is referenced in like the other books as well. And as she's arriving, before she's taken out of the wagons, she recites to herself, I am Celaena Sardothian, and I will not be afraid.
Okay, so if you read this in whatever, like that technically if you read in the order that Sarah J. Maas recommends, then you would read this first and then read the rest.
Yes.
That end is such a good start right into Throne of Glass that I'm like, honestly, like you could read either one. Like either direction.
You could read it in any direction.
I still think that this feels like a 5-star where we read it. It feels like a 4-star if you read it first. I just feel like the emotional impact is completely worth it to read it in this order. But I
don't think I would have been so emotionally like into Sam and her relationship. And,
that last one wouldn't have hurt so bad, but it
just
might.
Knowing.
The shock of it might have been.
Yeah,
because like God, she writes shocking ends so well. Like if we talk about ACOTAR, and
I
like,
would not have expected
so many of
Sam was gonna die.
I would not have either. Not in this.
No,
I think
if I read just this first without any of the background, I would not have anticipated. The second we got to that the like Empire section, I was just like, Sam's gonna die.
Sam's gonna die.
And then
We're gonna have
they brought up Farron, and I was like, he's definitely gonna die now because I know because it's Farron. It's the Farron thing.
I think. Does that make the writing better? That either way you read it, you have some like.
I think either way you read it,
it's kind of impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of impressive because if you know about it, it's still not spoon-fed so much that like even though we knew it was coming, we were like, is it now? Is it later? Is it next chapter? Is it in this time? Oh, I'm stressed out. Like,
I didn't know
when you're stressed out.
At the beginning, I didn't even think they were going to touch on it until we got to the Empire. Like until we got to like the second or like the fourth section where
yeah, because it starts out Sam and then it goes Irene and then it goes everything that's happening in the desert.
And I was like, oh, she's just meeting characters. And I was like, cool, that's great.
And then you
like,
get back to the last two and you're like, no, it's gonna
and then
happen.
She's back at the guild and I'm like, oh God, is it happening now? Like, is this where? And then we get another one post. And then I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. It's all going up to Throne of Glass where she's at Endovier when they find her. Yep. Uh-huh. Great. So our next read is
this
Queen
one's
of Shadows.
My favorite.
Oh my God, I'm scared. We're doing Queen of Showers in showers?
Queen of
Shadows?
Showers? That's a
Queen
different
of Shadows in I'm gonna say now, potentially 3 sections. We have it marked
slated,
as 2.
Here's the thing, guys. I have it slated for 2 sections, but
based on how long it takes us to do shit.
It's 388 pages just for the first section. So
yeah,
you're gonna start reading it like immediately, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah. What choice do I have?
That's true. I might have to start also reading it immediately to see if there's a stopping point that I need to give you.
Okay. We'll figure it out. We'll let you guys know.
We'll let you know
how the sections are broken out. But thanks.
I'm feeling confident about the tandem read, but I don't feel confident about how many episodes Queen of Shadows is going to be. Sorry.
Yeah. We want to try to keep these to like 2 hours. They have been a lot longer. And we did not anticipate them being
realistically
longer.
3 hours is the sweet spot for these ones. I think it's the fantasy and the fact that these ones are detailed and that we enjoy talking about them in a detailed way. Yeah. I think once we're done with this, I think it's more reasonable to say that we would probably go back to like 2-hour episodes for like, when we go back to reading.
Yeah. Hour and a half to 2 hours for like contemporary romance stuff.
Yeah.
Which,
yeah. We try to shove a lot of content into a short period of time, but let us know online if you guys are okay with the longer content.
Yeah. If you want us to break these up more, like just tell us and we will. We'll make them a little shorter. And we'll tell you what chapters. I don't know if
it's just like, it's not live, so that's nice.
Yeah.
People can pause. I don't know what people would rather have.
Yeah, you guys have to let us know because we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know what we're doing. We're just out here for you guys anyways, so.
Yeah, we just like reading.
Know. We do.
So, let us know.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being with us again. Thank you for reading The Assassin's Blade with us. I really enjoyed this. I'm going to say that again.
It was fantastic.
There is a period in Court of Thorns and Roses series where they tell you, like, some people say don't read the little novella. I am 100% on the boat of read the fucking novellas. I love them so much. They fill in the gaps just so perfectly. If you have not read A Court of Thorns and Roses yet, and someone has told you to skip Frost and Starlight, I'm telling you right now,
wrong.
Do not skip it. I have had a friend that skipped it, and then I told her to read it. She went back and read it, and she goes, everything makes so much sense now. Read the novella. She wrote it for a reason. She wasn't slated to write it. She wrote these out of her own heart. She wanted you to have the information, so read them. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I appreciate the heck out of you guys.
This was Kat's TED Talk. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming. If you want to find more about us, we're the Smut Peddlers on, like, literally everything. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We post TikToks and shorts and things like that. And we post about, since Rachel has read these, she's been posting on Instagram other books that she's read in between while I am just in the trenches. And the
amount of things that I have saved in my Instagram reels, just waiting. Jokes that I can't post yet because we're not there when the joke has happened. So lots of content. It's coming.
Yes. But thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.